Part 38. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 371. According to the customs in his hometown, Jiangshu is already 5 years old and is only a few months shy of his 4th birthday. He is now in the stage of constructing a worldview. Sometimes adults will remember a few words casually, and he will remember them for a long time. Most people really don't have this patience and spend all day talking nonsense. Zhou Wan and Li Wan he didn't pay any attention to his outrageous ideas. Only Li Yuan was willing to guide him and chat with him. But today, Li Yuan was speechless. It took him a long time to recover and give Jiangshu a good slap. Even if he doesn't understand the truth, he can still hit people. After Wang Qi gets married, even if she is done with this year's work, she will soon enter the unpredictable year of 2022. The US stock market is in the final game. The market is very complicated, and no one is targeting Li Yuan. However, on the Bitcoin side, Wall Street seems to have analyzed some data. Recently, the price of Bitcoin has dropped below $54,000. Li Yuan also decisively refused to follow and continued to wait. Wall Street may not have expected that Bitcoin's market would be so fragile. Just throwing billions of dollars at it could bring it down by more than a dozen points. If they continued at this level, they might still lose money. I don't dare to ship anymore, so I can only start data tracking. As a result, they found more than $60 billion in short orders. A short order means releasing a lot of chips that should not be on the market. The more they reduce their holdings, the more efficient the short order will be in collecting chips in the end. After all, it is a trillion-dollar supermarket. Even if there are dead links, compared with stocks with a trillion-dollar market value, the liquidity is still stronger. The trading volume of stocks like Apple and Microsoft in one day can hardly reach tens of billions of dollars. What about Bitcoin? The average daily turnover is $12 billion, which often reaches $20 billion. Whether it is long or short, this time is not appropriate. They were constrained by the $60 billion in short orders and were in a dilemma. Fortunately, they have inside information. The interest rate hike will be in the second half of 2022. There is still time, so take your time. After New Year's Day, Li Yuan, wearing a hat and mask, went to the supermarket with Jiangshu, who also wore a hat and mask. Jiangshu held a strange egg in his hand and asked, "Dad, can you lend me 5 yuan? I only have 3 yuan in my hand now." Li Yuan hurriedly said, "You only have 3 yuan, so go buy something that costs 3 yuan. What are you doing with something so expensive?" "But Grandma said she wanted to buy me a toy, and I heard about it." "Grandma wanted to buy me a toy, but you stopped her. Now I ask you to spend 5 yuan to comfort my wounded heart. Are you at a disadvantage? I am your son. Who did you listen to? Your grandma is not willing to buy vegetables herself. She can only eat what she grows in her own garden all day long. How can she have money to buy you toys? Last night when I slept with Grandma, Grandma said it herself." "Then you must have heard wrong. Zhou Wan has bought many toys for her children. But since Li Yuan came back, he was not allowed to buy it. He was willing to spend time playing with Jiangshu and didn't want Jiangshu to divert his energy elsewhere. Toys can indeed save parents' worries, but they can also miss the best time to guide their children's perspective. When Zhou Mo goes to kindergarten in the second half of the year, he will take both little guys with him." Jiangshu defended, "How could I hear it wrong? I didn't sleep at that time." "Li Yuan, then let me ask you, do you still remember an idiom I taught you yesterday?" Jiangshu thought for a while and said, "Is it the one that describes a group of brats?" "Yes. It's called demon. "Oh, then write it out and show it to me." "Jiangshu." Li Yuan immediately found an excuse and said, "Look, you can't write anymore, can you? I clearly wrote it to you yesterday, but now you can't write it? What does that mean? It means that you are shameless, Dad. Are you going to tire me out with so many gestures? Just don't buy it if you don't want to buy it for me. You make so many weird excuses all day long. You make me very sad. Mom is an idiot, and Dad he's a bastard. It's hard to imagine how miserable my brother and I will be in the future. In Jiangshu's eyes, anyone who couldn't answer his questions was an idiot. Dad is a smart man, but he has too many thoughts. He often struggles to maintain the relationship between father and son. What are you talking about? Your mother is indeed stupid, but why am I an asshole? I just don't take advantage of my money. Then you go to work, you eat and drink at home every day. Are you ashamed that your grandparents are so old and you have to chew them up? Li Yuan. Dad is rich and doesn't have to work. How can you have the nerve to say you have money when you can't even get out 5 yuan? That is because. Li Yuan looked around in the supermarket and saw a middle-aged man and woman pushing a wheelchair, with an old man sitting on the wheelchair. So he pointed over there and said, Dad lent his money to someone else. Look over there, it's that uncle. Jiangshu's eyes suddenly lit up, then let's go find him and ask for money. Li Yuan pulled him and said, no, look, that uncle's mother is still in a wheelchair. His family is in a difficult situation now and he doesn't even have enough to eat. How can Dad ask him for money at this time? Do you know what this behavior is called? It's called adding insult to injury. It describes someone falling into a well. It's already very dangerous, but you still throw stones into the well. How is this different from killing someone? But it is only natural to pay back debts. Then they don't have money, what can I do? Jiangshu showed a thoughtful expression, and Li Yuan stood there waiting. He liked to guide children to think about life on their own. The ideas obtained may be very immature, but this will help children develop the habit of thinking. Jiangshu suddenly smiled and said, Dad, I have thought of a way. Tell me about it. If it's useful, I'll definitely pay you 5 yuan. Jiangshu chuckled, pointed at the old man in the wheelchair and said, Dad, look, although that old woman is physically handicapped, her clothes are very clean, and her children are willing to accompany her when she goes to the supermarket. It shows that the uncle who lent you the money cares about his old mother. Yes. Then we will bring his old mother to our house and ask the uncle to bring the money. When he brings the money, we will ask him to take the old mother home. Li Yuan took a breath of cold air. Am I crazy? My grandma is already in her 70s and 80s, and her health is still not good. What if something happens to our family? People are still not allowed to blackmail me? If I owe money, others will take you away, and you end up in someone else's house. My family is injured, can I let them go? Jiangshu seemed to realize that there was something wrong with this idea. He quickly corrected himself and said, then let's take that uncle's sister home. That uncle must also love his sister and will definitely use money to redeem her. You don't call it taking her home, you call it kidnapping. Kidnapping is illegal, understand? Besides, it may not be someone else's sister, but maybe someone else's wife. Wife is fine too. Let his wife come to our house. If he doesn't pay back the money, let his wife wash the dishes at my house. Is our family short of dishwashers? But washing dishes will take up a lot of grandma's time. If grandma doesn't have to wash dishes, can she work a little longer? Earn more money. Well, you are really a good grandson of grandma. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 372. Everyone in the family felt that Jiangshu was outrageous and that Li Yuan had brought up the child. But Li Yuan just likes to play with Jiangshu every day. Jiangshu is a quick learner, and he can quickly apply the idioms Li Yuan explained to his life. It was less than half a month before the Chinese New Year. He took Zhang Shu to the back mountain to get some branches and some sweet potatoes from home. The two of them sat in front of the fire and said this while waiting for the roasted sweet potatoes to ripen. Zhang Shu asked, "Dad, I found a problem." "What is the problem?" Zhang Shu immediately picked up the mineral water bottle, placed it on the flame, and said, "Dad, if this water bottle is a pot, the water will be boiled, right?" "Right." Li Yuan did not explain that although this was a plastic bottle, it could also boil water. He couldn't forcefully instill knowledge. He wanted Zhang Shu to discover it himself and then guide it himself. Zhang Shu continued, "But I picked up a burning stick and put it on the mouth of the bottle. It was obviously heating it, but why didn't the water boil?" Li Yuan smiled and said, "It's very simple, because when you burn from the bottom of the bottle, the water below is heated first, and the water is bound by the bottle and can only move upward. Naturally, the cold water above is replaced. When it comes down, the water in the entire bottle will boil. If you put fire on the mouth of the bottle, the top water will be heated. Because of the opening, when the temperature of the top water becomes high, it will run away directly." Zhang Shu knew some basic common sense and even some rules of physics. But Li Yuan's explanation still made him think about it for a long time, but he still didn't understand it. "Dad, I don't quite understand." Li Yuan continued, "For example, if the water molecules in this bottle of water are countless little people, what does the temperature represent? It represents the speed of the movement of these little people. The faster the speed, the higher the temperature. The flame is placed on when the heat is applied below, the little guy at the bottom will definitely not be able to bear it first and will run up like crazy, right?" "Right. Why can't it run to the side?" "Because there is no opening next to it." "Yes, there is no opening on the side. The little people on the top layer are different. They absorb the energy of the flame. If they can't stand the heat of the flame, they can fly away directly, so if you want to heat a pot of water, you can either heat it from below. Heating, or the hole must be blocked. Let the heated little people move crazily throughout the bottle, and also bring many non-moving little people with it." "Dad, why don't you just say that getting rich first leads to getting rich later? It's so troublesome to explain." Li Yuan. Zhang Shu thought for a while and said to himself, "Dad, I think you made a mistake." "Huh? What's wrong?" Zhang Shu pointed at the bottle and continued, "Look, those who got rich first did not actually lead others, but they wanted to go up. If they don't go up, they can't stand the flames below. And he jumped after leaving the position, others will come to accept the baptism of fire. This is a cycle, so in essence it does not matter who takes whom, it is just an instinctive drive. If you don't seal your mouth, some people will still escape. But even if it is sealed, everyone inside is an independent individual and cannot be viewed as a whole. No one actively gave up their position, they all gave up their position passively." "Well, you're right. So if you do good deeds, don't expect others to be grateful, because doing good deeds is just your instinct. If someone is grateful, you should remember them. If others are not grateful, you can't hold grudges because you have done good deeds yourself. It's a means of livelihood for you." Zhang Shu shook his head and said, "Dad, what you said is incomprehensible. I don't want to learn this." Li Yuan smiled and said, "Then we won't learn. Let's eat sweet potatoes. Today's sweet potatoes are especially sweet." It was Zhang Shu who was a little absent-minded while eating. "Dad, I'm actually just talking nonsense. I don't know how getting rich first leads to getting rich later." "Yeah, I understand. Then, can you not give me too much expectations? Of course, I will respect your choice at any time. Then will you be angry?" "Huh? Why should I be angry?" "Because I didn't satisfy you, you won't deny me as your son in the future, right?" Li Yuan smiled and said, What are you thinking about? Even if you are not satisfied in the future, it is your choice. You must want to be a good son in your heart, but there are differences in our views. You believe in yourself more. What is wrong with this? You cannot use right or wrong to describe the relationship between relatives. For example, when I am 70 or 80 years old, I will become a garrulous old man with a weird personality. I will not satisfy you either. You can't just beat me and scold me when the time comes, right? Or are you going to starve me to death if you don't give me food? Jiangshu was thoughtful. Does it mean that the more mistakes I make, the more mistakes you will make in the future? Theoretically yes, otherwise everyone would want to be a son and not a father. If that were the case, you would not be born. Oh, then I understand. After all, Jiangshu was only 4 years old. He was just being around Li Yuan and thought about it in advance. Li Yuan did not shy away from many things to him, and would even use simple things to help him understand. What do you understand? I will have more sons in the future, so that when I get old, I can work hard to be a monster. Zhang Yuling watched Li Yuan and Jiangshu come back. Jiangshu's face was dark. He immediately asked, if you don't even wipe him, others will laugh to death if they see you. Anyway, Li Yuan doesn't care about hygiene when raising children. I didn't bring wet wipes. I'll pay attention next time. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he winked at Jiangshu and said, son, didn't you say you had a gift for mom? Why don't you take it out quickly? Zhang Yuling was stunned. She never thought she would receive a gift from her son. Jiangshu took out a roasted sweet potato from his pocket and said, Mom, I'm not even willing to eat it myself, so I left it just for you. Zhang Yuling looked at a deformed sweet potato and was a little moved. This little guy is so sensible that it's heartbreaking sometimes. Of course, most of the time the popularity will hurt your chest. It's just that the sweet potato seems to have been squashed, and it's still that weirdly flat shape. The sides were flattened, and there was a bulge in the middle. After Zhang Yuling took it, he asked, the shape of this sweet potato is so strange, it looks like a brush holder. Jiangshu nodded quickly, yes, I accidentally sat on it. Zhang Yuling. Isn't that the raised piece in the middle of the sweet potato? Huh. She hurriedly handed the sweet potatoes to Li Yuan and said, Mom doesn't like sweet potatoes. Let your dad eat them. Come in with me and I'll wipe your mouth. Li Yuan walked in with sweet potatoes and said, actually, squashed sweet potatoes are more delicious, just like candied haws, aren't squashed ones better sold? Then you eat. I reward you. Ahem, his grandpa must like it better. Li Yuan didn't dislike it, he even changed Jiangshu's diapers. At that time, he didn't understand anything, so he got it done. Strangely enough, if it was someone else's, he would definitely not be able to bear it on the spot and would probably vomit it out. But my own child didn't feel anything at all. Just don't eat too much sweet potatoes, otherwise the whole house will know about your farts. After Zhang Yuling cleaned up Jiangshu, he found an excuse to let him take care of his brother for a while, then came to Li Yuan and asked, don't you think something is wrong with Jiangshu? Even though it is 2022, it is 4 years old. That, plus the time in your belly, it's already 5 years old. Li Yuan reminded. The so-called virtual age is the 10 months the baby was in the mother's belly. That's not right. In theory, it will take another year or two to reach his level, even if he is a genius. What do you want to say? You must have led him astray. You guide him every day. He has so many problems at such a young age. Li Yuan. Is he responsible for this? There must be. If he didn't guide him, no matter how lively Jiangshu was, after repeated attempts without results, he would lose the idea of thinking and wait until he was older. If he causes trouble in the future, you have to be responsible for solving it. In her opinion, Li Yuan's thinking was outrageous enough. He had taken Jiangshu with him since he was a child. Who knew how far Jiangshu would be led astray by him in the future? I'll wait till he's old enough to cause trouble. Zhang Yuling choked on his words. Then he said, why don't you leave Lu Hanshen's name to me, and I will arrange for someone to go through the formalities in 2 days. The so-called procedures are divorce and remarriage. This can dilute Li Yuan's traces to the greatest extent. You won't be able to see it in a short period of time, but if the timeline is extended to 5 or 10 years, the effect will be particularly obvious. Perhaps on the internet, after deliberate concealment, most people will not know the name Li Yuan 10 years later. Good. Li Yuan was going to have a good chat with Zhou Ranran tonight, and it was inevitable that he would have to work hard. After all, he had promised to Zhou Ranran before. It is important to create a better atmosphere for Jiangshu now. As for the identity of Li Yuan, don't use it if you can, just treat that guy as dead. In mid-January, the United States disclosed to the media its intention to raise interest rates, which is expected to be in July. Then, the global financial market ushered in an explosion. U.S. stocks rose for several days and then began to slowly fall. Li Yuan took the opportunity to liquidate all his U.S. stock holdings, with $90 billion in and $170 billion out. Later, Shen Anna was arranged to slowly open short orders, with the scale controlled at $20 billion. There is no profit from this money, because the short contract carries interest, and the annual interest rate of securities companies in the United States is basically 14 points. The next year will be a downward cycle, with a total of 20 or 30 points of index decline. A short contract can earn at most 30 or 40 points. Excluding the annual interest, it is considered good to earn more than a dozen points. Moreover, if there are too many funds for short orders, subsequent operations will be very troublesome. When his funds come out, there will definitely be a huge butterfly effect. Wall Street's profit expectations in the past 3 years have been pushed to the extreme. This time, in order to preserve funds, they are likely to resist. Originally, in the past 3 years, Wall Street could harvest $2 to $3 trillion at will. What was the result? The situation was completely disrupted by Li Yuan, who was cutting meat and stealing chips every day. It seemed that there was a lot of excess in the books, but when it was about to be cashed out, it was discovered that the stored grain pile had been emptied, leaving only the surface layer. Once the effect is over, they will be lucky if they can make 1 trillion yuan. The profit of 1 trillion yuan is not enough for their hard work over the past 3 years, nor can it outpace the inflation caused by the crazy money printing in the beautiful country. Wall Street has begun to advocate the island's stock market, especially the news of Buffett's fate. As for the A shares, they lay so tightly that they only needed to be covered with a white cloth. A large amount of money is trapped in it. Once the US dollar starts to raise interest rates, that money will have to be cut off and left. Because if you don't cut the meat, you will lose more, and the retail investors will also run away. Under the general environment, whoever runs first will lose less. Everyone is preparing for the coming winter of US dollar interest rate hikes. Li Yuan is no exception. The annual report of Qingtian Capital was released urgently on January 6 last year, but this year, it has been postponed until the last trading day of the year. The annual report is very simple, with revenue of more than 40 billion and net profit of 36 billion. No dividends. Almost all of this 40 billion was revenue from the first few months. In the next 8 months, because the fund was forcibly liquidated and settled, it did not earn a penny, and because Guomeng launched new projects and supported the 34, a company went public and spent billions. As for reducing holdings, it is impossible to reduce holdings at all. Li Yuan smashed it outwards, and the stock price immediately fell to the floor, with no one picking up. When he doesn't do it, someone will spend a few tens of millions to push the stock price up. After all, the chips are so concentrated inside. One day before the Chinese New Year, the god of wealth called Li Yuan. Li Yuan, I will retire next year. Before I retire, I have organized a game and I want you to honor me. Li Yuan quickly refused, old man, I really don't dare to go out now. I am still young and want to live a few more years. I have earned so much money and I haven't spent it yet. This is the attitude he has shown recently. He will not go to anyone who calls him out, and he will not speak out in any media. He was even removed from last year's Forbes rich list. Then I will ask Yao Yingsong to pick you up. I am very optimistic about this guy, but the time he will stay in his current position is too short. I have already discussed it with others, and it will be 3 to 5 years at most. Li Yuan quickly interrupted, old man, just talk to him about Yao Yingsong. He will definitely be very moved. It's pointless to talk to someone like me. Haha, doesn't he count as your brother-in-law? No, 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 I don't dare. I have a lot of things in my family that haven't been resolved yet, and I don't have the energy to recognize other relatives. The god of wealth was silent for a while and said, to be honest, I asked Yao Yingsong to invite you. No matter who comes, it won't work. I'm afraid of death now and won't go anywhere. If you really want to eat, wait until the end of March. Call everyone and come to my place. I'll treat you to a meal. As for those who don't want to come, then don't come here again for the rest of your life. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 373. Li Yuan has been silent for a year and has been waiting for today. The cruel words he said in 20 years have gradually been fulfilled. If we are honest friends, then everyone can still play together. After all, it is impossible to expect his family to support the entire A-share market. He could have added fuel to the fire. He only had to say a few words on his media account that he was not optimistic about the financial market, and many retail investors would definitely come out and countless Christians would redeem themselves. It will directly destroy those funds. But he didn't do it, he just left a hint. Since they want to talk now, they should use the thin line left as an opening to talk. If you don't want to talk, you won't even leave a ray of hope for them. The old man's invitation to dinner must be to serve as a lobbyist for those big capitals. He hopes that Li Yuan can come forward to promote Qingtian capital, otherwise those big capitals will be crushed to death by the mountain of Qingtian capital. Now none of them regret it. They thought they could get Li Yuan's dividends, but they didn't expect that Li Yuan was trying to get their principal. At the end of March, this day is very special and will give Li Yuan some more bargaining chips. I stopped worrying about it a year ago. This year is a very important year for the whole family. The child has grown up, and before he knew it, Li Siking was already 2 years old and at the age of learning to speak. Li Yuan took his 3 older children to set off fireworks and firecrackers. On New Year's Eve, it snowed. There was very little snow this time. In order to build a snowman, Li Yuan's hands were trembling from the cold and he couldn't even get it together. There still has to be a lot of snow on the mountain. This year's expectations will definitely be in vain, because he is not suitable to go to the mountains again. Going there will only cause trouble for Qin Si. On New Year's Eve, Cao Yuan specially took a video of Li Yuan wearing a New Year's red coat. His legs were extremely beautiful. Chen Ji didn't say anything, knowing that it was normal for Li Yuan not to go to Zhangzhou this year. If it hadn't been for Guo Meng's incident, Li Yuan would have stayed in Zhangzhou for a month or 2. The current situation is like this. Someone has broken the rules, so Li Yuan should be on guard. Just like when Lu Shangyuan found someone to threaten Li Yuan pretended to be attacked and directly put Lu Shangyuan on the fire. In essence, the final form of any game is offline PK, but no matter how uncomfortable and hateful they are, they have never actually implemented that step. Once the bottom line is breached, things will get out of control. Anyone with some rationality will weigh the gains and losses. This is why Lu Shangyuan's father was scared after Li Yuan was attacked. On the one hand, things go too far, but on the other hand, it also shows that there is no rationality. Who wants to cooperate with irrational people? This is also Li Yuan's screening method. If those people don't bow their heads now, then cooperation will be meaningless. Late at night, after seeing off several children, Li Yuan looked at the snow falling outside through the bedroom window. Zhang Yuling knew what he was thinking. The fact that he didn't go shows that he is very rational. Maybe there are many flaws around Qin Si. He went up the mountain, and even if there were guards, he would not be able to get down from the mountain smoothly. There is a conflict between reason and fantasy. This guy must be very confused now. So, on the first day of the new year, Qin Si brought Qin Sheng to pay New Year's greetings to Zhou Wan and Li Wanhe. Although the relatives on both sides are separated by who knows how many generations, they can eventually connect if they want to. 7-year-old Qin Sheng is almost a grown boy, but his personality is still introverted, even more outrageous than Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo just talks less and is taught a lot by Zhou Ran. Qin Sheng is so old and still a little shy. He only follows Qin Si. When others talk to him, you can see the timidity in his eyes. Li Yuan is slightly better. After all, he has been in contact with Li Yuan many times. Although it snowed at noon, there were no shortage of people who were supposed to come. Yu remained unchanged for thousands of years. After arriving here, he first went to Li Yuan's grandparents to say hello and give gifts. Then came Anna Shen's side and Zhou Ran's side. When he was at another house, the gifts he gave were not cheap and were quite large. Basically, Grandpa Li Yuan can enjoy good smoking and drinking for a year. It doesn't matter when it comes to Li Yuan, just pick up some tea from his hometown. Ho Wenbin and others have now learned from Yu. Sometimes the food is gone at the end, and they are empty-handed when they come to Li Yuan. By the way, they can pick up something from Li Yuan. Every year on the first day of the Lunar New Year, Li Yuan's house is very lively. This year, Wang Qi is gone, and Shi and Yao Yingsong will not come here until the second day of junior high school. But Qin Si came again, so there were still 2 tables full of people. Gu Dongsheng and Chen Qi were not regular visitors to begin with, but last year was an accident. Zhou Wan is also quite busy on this day, and it is also a really busy day of the year. It's not that I'm busy at other times, it's just that there are too many children to look after. Zhou Ran went to stay for a while, Anna Shen went to stay for a while, and also called Song Jiajia. They don't know about Chenji yet. Once they find out, they will definitely rush to Zhangzhou. After all, they currently thought that Song Jiajia was the only one in Zhangzhou and it would be inconvenient to go there. If she knew there was a granddaughter in Zhangzhou, even if it was inappropriate, she would secretly rush over to have a look. The first day of the Lunar New Year is also the day when all kinds of news are summarized. While Yu was eating, he asked Cao Ping, "Old Cao, I heard that Qinghe County's GDP surged from more than 20 billion to more than 40 billion last year." Cao Ping, "That has nothing to do with me. It's all Mr. Li's credit. It's not just the GDP, but also tax revenue. Qinghe County's tax revenue has more than tripled this year. In the past, Qinghe County's tax revenue was only 300 million per year, but this year it was almost 1 billion. The main source is Jushan Media. These data are only for a few months, and taxes will only be higher throughout next year. As for Nanshan Group, it is currently losing money, and personal income tax has nothing to do with the local government. Vixen also does not pay taxes directly, but pays a lot of taxes indirectly. In particular, it has supported dozens of local agricultural and sideline product companies. Those companies don't pay much in taxes, but they create a lot of jobs. Nanshan Group pays more taxes indirectly and directly revitalizes the local building materials market and artificial market. There are also thousands of employees from Jushin Media and Bixen. The consumption they bring after coming to Kinghe County is definitely a virtuous circle for Kinghe County. Kinghe County will be even more brilliant this year. CAO Ping rectified the market for a year and borrowed $5 billion from the Aldehyde Bank to improve humanities, build roads, and build a smoother logistics system. CAO Ping didn't mind getting closer to Li Yuan at all. He was different from Yao Yingsong, who was in the capital. As long as he can do things well in his place, other things will not only be a stain, but will become a display of his ability. Yao Yingsong can't do it. He is in the capital and is too close to Li Yuan, leaving him little space. Li Yuan said, "What Lao Cao said is wrong. It is right to do something for your hometown. Besides, although I am not making money now, the future is not certain. I am also considering it from the perspective of a businessman. What is the credit? Forget it." Everyone knew that Li Yuan was being polite, and Cao Ping also knew it. But if you really take it as a courtesy, that would be a mistake. He said with a smile, "This year I can guarantee that the environment of the entire county will be better and better than before. Even in the nearby counties, everyone can come to me if they have any problems, and I will take care of it." Cao Ping has a background. Although he is not a master, he is definitely much better than Yao Yingsong. Yao Yingsong's side will have to endure who knows how many years, and he, as long as he can do this well, he will change positions in 4 years. As long as he doesn't go to the capital, no matter where he is or what his position is, he can eat quickly. So for this year, let's have a drink. Someone suggested. After dinner, there was another negotiation between various projects. After Cao Ping left, Li Yuan held another small meeting with everyone. You must have various needs, so just ask him to speak directly, and Ho Wenbin and the others can help solve them. There are some confidential projects that cannot be discussed, such as King Hua's photolithography factory project. Even Yu is not very clear about it and is only responsible for providing money. In fact, the goal of this group of people is very simple, that is, to form an ecosystem under their own control and create a brand that they can control. For this, everyone must give up their previous preferences. For example, they must give up other cars and other luxuries now, and use their own instead. This was forced by Li Yuan, so hypocrisy is just hypocrisy. Your own is not necessarily the best, but the benefits it can bring are definitely the greatest. Whether of private or public interest. From clothing brands to decorations, as well as building materials brands, home appliances. They now have enough resources to integrate, and they can talk to even those big old manufacturers. When it comes to negotiations, Ho Wenbin and others naturally know how to weigh gains and losses and analyze weights. Pattern, they are not lacking. With Li Yuan taking care of everything, they have no selfish motives at all. They help Li Yuan get things done, and their annual income will definitely exceed expectations. After chatting until about 6 o'clock in the afternoon and having another meal, Li Yuan told them about the trust fund. Last year, the overall industry was not particularly good, and the profits were not very impressive. The dividends each fund deserves is 30 million. After April, you go to Shen Anna, and she will issue you a certificate. Then you can go directly to Aldehyde Bank to get the money. After Li Yuan finished the first half of the sentence, everyone really had no expectations. They all knew that Li Yuan didn't seem to be working much this year, and his income was low. It was normal. But the second half of the sentence. An income of 30 million? The principal is only 50 million, and the annual income is 60%? In such a bad market? With this kind of income, What else do you need for a bicycle? On the 13 Tebeo side, the per capita income is basically 500 million. All year round, after working so hard, each person has not earned even 100 million, but what about Li Yuan? I gave them a big red envelope of 300 million yuan in an understatement. What if the market gets better? Yu did not pay dividends this year because he still owed Li Yuan 200 million, which was not enough to repay the debt. But next year is pretty much it. Inexplicably becoming a boss worth hundreds of millions, Yu could only lament his fate. Otherwise, with his ability, it would be very difficult to have even a few million in hand, let alone hundreds of millions. Thanks to that headhunting company back then. No matter what others think, at least it changed his destiny. It is too easy for Qingtian Group to support a company now. For example, by giving various holiday gifts to employees, we can support 3 or 5 food processing plants. It is true that Kixing Motors has not sold many vehicles, but there are quite a few on the market. It is standard equipment for Qingtian Group employees, and Nanshan Group has directly ordered 20,000 units for delivery this year. Qinghe County has purchased 800 vehicles, which are used on the one hand as official vehicles and on the other hand as reception vehicles. Cao Ping has launched a reception service, that is, anyone who comes to Qinghe from other places can enjoy car pickup and drop off. This is also a means to combat illegal rentals at major stations. The relevant drivers are all transferred from the original taxi drivers. They are re-employed after training and have 5 insurances and 1 fund. You can also apply for jobs from the public. At present, the biggest shortage of jobs in Qinghe County is jobs, and this is despite a lot of jobs being given to other counties. The goals for the new year have been set, and everyone has a clear understanding of the gains made in the past year, and no one is dissatisfied. After dinner, everyone went back to their homes. Most of them go back to their villa to sleep for a night. In June this year, we will consider moving. Li Yuan saw off the people and returned home, only to find that Qin Sheng was still playing in the living room. He hadn't noticed it before. Qin Si had just come down from upstairs, and Zhang Yuling was following beside him with his child in his arms. Zhang Yuling came over and said, "It's getting dark and it's snowing again. It's not convenient for Sisi to go back. I'll let her stay here tonight." "Well, hubby, just go to the room to the west and sleep tonight, how about it?" "What about Xiaosheng? It's also in the west, and Jiangshu wants to sleep there too. You just happen to like children." "What did my parents say? They couldn't bear to leave Jiangshu." Zhou Wan was upset, but her love for her eldest grandson was definitely not adulterated in the slightest. She had already adapted to the life of taking care of her eldest grandson every day. If she hadn't been by her side, she probably wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. "I'll bring Jing Cheng to them." "Okay, you go and rest first, and leave the 2 children to me." After saying that, he walked towards Qin Sheng. "Little guy, dare to be introverted? Let Jiangshu have a good chat with him later." No one dares to underestimate Jiangshu's chatting ability. Any bad thing can become his excuse. Especially when Li Yuan was beside him, he was like a compliment. In the room on the west side of the 2nd floor, Qin Sheng saw what Tang Monk was like. So annoying. But I also yearned for what Jiangshu described, but I really couldn't wrap my head around it. At around 11 o'clock at night, the 2 little guys finally fell asleep. Li Yuan covered them with quilts and went to the study. I opened a document that was prepared last year. The title of the document is Spark. Meaning, a single spark can start a prairie fire. At this time, Zhang Yuling sent a message. "Honey, are you asleep?" "No, I just put the child to bed and couldn't sleep. He's in the study room." About 2 minutes later, Zhang Yuling said, "Then come to my side." Qin Si was worried about the child, so he went over to take a look. After hearing this, Li Yuan knew what Zhang Yuling meant when he sent a message to him. He wanted to see if he was with Qin Si. Daughter-in-law, are you so worried about me? This is our house, how dare I mess around? Who is worried? I think you are thinking wrongly. He. Li Yuan stood up and walked toward the bedroom. Zhang Yuling. Li Yuan was going to talk to her about this matter later. Isn't this just trying to prove someone's innocence out of thin air? But when he came to the master bedroom and found that Qin Si was the only one on the bed, he was stunned for a moment. Qin Si himself was stunned for a moment. He said with some embarrassment, Sister Yuling just said she was going to see the child, so, she should be back soon. Li Yuan admitted that he was wrong. After all, he never thought that Zhang Yuling could be so generous. This is not something a normal person can do. She probably won't come back. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 374. Zhang Yuling turned on a small desk lamp in the West House and sat by the bed, looking at Zhang Shu, who was sleeping soundly. She said she didn't want Li Yuan to lead Zhang Shu, but she never stopped Li Yuan from continuing to play with him. The reason is simple, she is also a vulgar woman. Who in the world is good? Money, talent, and power are all irresistible. She has never lacked money or power since she was a child. But that is only from the perspective of the people around her. After all, there is no one who is obviously more powerful than her. Even if there is a slight gap, it is not big. It's like people only say that they don't like money at all when they have money. Only when you have the power can you dare to say that you only want to serve everyone. Human beings have double standards deep down, and the reason for the double standards is that they have different stances. Most people can reach their ceiling, and even if they feel unwilling to do so, they will accept their fate. She is someone who has hit the ceiling since she was born. She is not unwilling at all and is completely at home in her own class. She never thought that the future would be better. Generally speaking, no money or power can move her, except feelings. If I was with Li Yuan in the beginning because I had a twisted psychology and needed the affection provided by Zhou Wan and Li Wanhe, then now, it's basically blind worship. Worship of money and power. She never thought that a person could achieve this on his own. In this world, anyone can find a replacement, but he can't. There are many rich people in this world, some of them have many confidants. But it is almost impossible for those confidants to be sincere. This is also human nature. Women are not willing to give up their men to others at all, unless it is purely for money, or the man is powerful and has to give in out of fear. No matter what they were like in the beginning, the people around Li Yuan are basically not in it for money now. Otherwise, the 50 billion would not have been rejected. After all, if you stay with Li Yuan for a lifetime, you may not get 50 billion. Song Jia Jia? That was the exception, she was getting her own salary. As for some of Li Yuan's equity transfers, Lotus Trust was operating behind them and they all signed side agreements, which does not mean that they can really get that much money. Of course, it is definitely not to appreciate Li Yuan's talent or power. Power? He has no apparent power at all. As for talent, it has long been exhausted. What really attracts everyone is desire and mystery. The more time I spent with Li Yuan, the more I realized that his inner desire was like a raging fire. Even though it was already like this, it still did not weaken in the slightest. Instead, the fire grew stronger and stronger. The future has a strong sense of mystery, just like opening a blind box. The opening is getting better and better, and there is more and more expectation. Now that he has another child, Li Yuan devotes much energy to his child that most people don't enjoy, adding another buff to this blind box. From being scared at the beginning, she is now full of expectations. She also had to open this blind box. The material conditions are full, and the spiritual conditions are also quite rich. At this point in life, there is still something to look forward to, which is the mystery about Li Yuan. Everyone is playing this blind box game of life, and Li Yuan is the protagonist. Li Yuan subconsciously opened the bedside table because there was something he needed in it. However, after groping for a while, I found that it was gone. He clearly remembered that there was still a lot left. At this time, he was ready to go. Zhang Yuling must have hidden it. After all, a place that has not changed for so many years cannot suddenly disappear. Never mind. Rush. When Zhang Yuling woke up, he found Li Yuan beside him. It was only around 6 o'clock in the morning. She didn't sleep well, but she just felt some movement. After seeing it was Li Yuan, she nuzzled into Li Yuan's arms and continued to sleep. Li Yuan also fell asleep quickly. Until 10 o'clock in the morning, Li Yuan was in a daze and was woken up by Zhang Shu. Fortunately, he didn't feel angry when he got up, otherwise he would have gone crazy after only sleeping for 4 hours. Zhang Yuling had just chased him to the door, with a look of helplessness on his face. He was about to wake you up after 8 o'clock, but I stopped him. In the blink of an eye, he ran upstairs again. The family members were all wary of Zhang Shu coming to call Li Yuan, and even told him several times to let Zhang Shu stay on the first floor. As a result, a child of Zhang Shu's age was lost accidentally. After Zhang Yuling found out, he hurried upstairs, but it was still a step too late. Looking at Li Yuan with bloodshot eyes, Zhang Yuling also felt distressed. Li Yuan said, "It's okay, it's okay. I have to bear the sins I caused myself." After saying that, he picked up Zhang Shu with both hands and said, "Let's go, Dad, go wash your face and brush your teeth. You go and call Joe Mo first, and then we go out to play. Dad, there is also Qin Sheng." "Huh? Is Qin Sheng still there?" "Yes, his family has moved here, and I helped him move a lot of things this morning." "Am I good at it?" "Awesome, awesome," then everyone shouts. "I'll take the 3 of you skiing." There wasn't much snow on the ground, it hadn't fallen much. Moreover, it has been extremely cold these 2 days, and the little snow has turned into ice. So, it's not skiing, it's skating. Half an hour later, Li Yuan was carrying a plastic basin, and the 3 little guys were wrapped tightly, all wearing thick hats and gloves. Found a slope and started the day with a layer of ice on the surface. "Dad, if you are not careful while skating, will you break your head?" "Yes, no matter what you do in life, you have to be careful. But you don't have to do it today, because I am here and I will protect you. Then we can't skate while you're not around." "Who said that?" "You can skate when I'm not around, but at that time, you are the first person responsible for yourself. If something goes wrong, you can only bear the consequences yourself. Then I'd better not give it up. I don't have to be beaten because my father is at home. But there will always be a day when Dad is gone. Unless you never want to play such interesting activities in your life, you will have to face those difficulties sooner or later. When encountering difficulties, the first thing that comes to mind should not be to escape, but to thinking about defeating it." "Awesome. That's okay, no problem. No matter what your belief is, it is a good thing to stick to it. Then if I don't want to learn, how can I defeat it?" I'm afraid this won't work. You have to defeat the feather duster in your grandma's hand, and even your father and I can't defeat that feather duster. Then if I surpass Dad, will I have the strength to defeat that feather duster?" "Right." Li Yuan did not dampen his confidence. In his opinion, even if Zhang Shu surpassed him, it would be difficult to defeat the most powerful artifact in history. Unless Zhou Wan is too old to lift the feather duster. But when that time comes, no one can defeat it. A few days after the new year, things that were supposed to happen still happened. This is the 3rd black swan to appear since 2020. The first black swan was Zinguan, the second black swan was the plunge in crude oil prices, and the third, war. This incident is not unexpected. It can only be said that this time point is beyond everyone's expectations. Either it will break out in 2017, or it will become an unknown. The anchor point of the unknown has chosen this juncture. The whole world is shorting the ruble. Li Yuan called Anna Shen and asked her to buy a large amount of rubles. The foreign exchange market is also counterparty trading, which is no different from futures. Only when someone sells the ruble contract can someone buy it. A large amount of ruble selling caused the ruble exchange rate to plummet. Anna Shen took over nearly $3 billion in rubles in one day. The entire market sold rubles worth tens of billions of dollars in one day. The entire market was surprised. Who was buying rubles in such a large amount? Especially related personnel. Li Yuan was not a supporter of De Mao. They and De Mao essentially had a pure interest relationship, and they fell out with each other countless times. Interested relationships, what kind of feelings are you talking about? Therefore, Li Yuan did not pull too much, otherwise he could eat all of the more than $10 billion. Only eat part of it to ensure your own profit margin. This transaction used money from the family fund and is also the source of all the income of the family fund this year. At the same time, Bitcoin also began to plummet. Obviously, Wall Street can't bear it anymore. For 2 consecutive days, Bitcoin fell more than 10 points. The trading volume is not low, but judging from the market, not much money has escaped on Wall Street. At this time, it is best for Wall Street to contact those tens of billions of dollars in short orders. Short orders require chips, and they have a lot of chips. Can reduce the maximum amount of chips at the minimum cost. But no matter what, I just can't get in touch. This feeling was all too familiar to them. There is no one in the world that they cannot contact, except Li Yuan. Because Li Yuan would find an answerer who couldn't understand English. In mid-March, Wall Street finally called Li Yuan. At this time, the price of Bitcoin had dropped to $30,000. At this position, Wall Street's remaining bargaining chips are equivalent to being locked up. In addition, when they were smashed before, in order to stabilize the market, they took in nearly $20 billion at the position of $60,000. These $20 billion have not yet been released. It's the same as losing money. They have to come out because the US dollar is about to raise interest rates. It was forced to raise interest rates early, and it only happened in the past 2 days. Only they know this action. Li Yuan refused to answer the call and left the phone with Anna Shen. She was told to wait for Wall Street to call again and she would be responsible for answering it. Let Anna Shen negotiate terms with the other party first. You must take it. After all, if you hold such a large short contract, you need to pay a lot of interest, and there is also a lot of restricted margin. Wall Street has no way to shut down Bitcoin unless it closes the channel for the US dollar world currency. Fortunately, in the US stock market, they can target certain stocks. With a little effort, the brokerage firm can restrict the processing of all the accounts associated with Li Yuan's chips. However, the amount of the project was too large, and Li Yuan's capital account was very scattered, so it was theoretically feasible. It's like installing an elevator on Everest. The conditions he asked Anna Shen to negotiate were very simple. He did not deliberately lower the price. He was willing to accept it for us $30,000. After all, only by letting Wall Street lose a little less will they spend money at all costs, all the way up to more than $10,000. His current short positions have reached $70 billion, and the average price is around $60,000. If you take over $10 billion at $30,000, the rest will be taken over at more than $10,000. This operation has no technical content as a whole, and there is not too much gaming. It is just that the needs of both parties are inconsistent, and the other party has not expected that things will suddenly be out of control. If you give them another 3 months, they will definitely be able to generate tens of billions of dollars, and there will be no loss on the whole. Naturally, there is no need to come here to find Li Yuan. Of course, there will definitely be other conditions discussed, and he must need Azamel's most advanced photolithography machine. They definitely won't give it to me. Anyway, it doesn't matter whether the conditions can be negotiated or not. What matters is telling others what you are lacking. On March 15, Li Yuan had his first phone call with bills in 2 years. Mr. Li, you finally don't have to find a receptionist who doesn't speak English. If you need it, I can arrange for an employee who is proficient in English to come to you. This will also facilitate our subsequent communication. Beers and Anna Shen had nothing to talk about, so they arranged for their subordinates to communicate. The two sides conducted a few days of research, and the formal communication was not so strenuous. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Beers. If you can send a beautiful woman over, I will definitely be happy. Of course, she will be a beautiful woman. Then I'll just wait for the receptionist to come over and then we can communicate again. No, Mr. Li's English is very good, there is no barrier between us. Li Yuan didn't even know that his English was good. He is a typical translator of English. After all, he worked as a handyman for 10 years in his previous life and read a lot of relevant data. Could it be that Mr. Beers can't wait? If he can't wait, then I will take the lead in this negotiation. Li Yuan didn't say anything like they were going to raise interest rates tomorrow. Let the other party think there is a traitor within them. Make them suspicious. This is not a good thing, because they do have it internally. Once found out, it will be a huge loss to China. Mr. Li, we really can't wait. The US dollar interest rate hike in May should be considered too much for all of us. The 70 billion US dollars of short orders in Mr. Li's hands will make a lot of money this time. Congratulations here in advance. Beers didn't mind others knowing their weaknesses, because he believed that Li Yuan also had a lot of dollars in his hands. He must not only put the money in Bitcoin, but what about other funds? He was eager for Li Yuan to take action, and then take advantage of the interest rate hike cycle to slowly lock in Li Yuan's funds. Anyway, no one wants to make money in this cycle. Mr. Beers, you are mistaken. I only have 40 billion US dollars in short positions, and the rest is not mine. Since you even told me the time for the interest rate hike, it means that we are friends. Thank you Mr. Beers for helping me to recover the losses. I can enter the market with 10 billion US dollars today and take over the chips in your hands. Mr. Li, the news I brought to you is more than 10 billion US dollars. Of course, but I can only take out so much. $30 billion. Are you kidding me? $20 billion is enough for me to repay all my short orders. With 20 billion US dollars, I can open a channel for you to US stocks. In a market that is experiencing an interest rate hike cycle, does Mr. Beers want me to step in and take over? Even if he goes in, he won't go in under the supervision of others. Mr. Li can go short. I'm worried that one day suddenly the account will become disobedient. Mr. Beers, let's talk about something meaningful. I can take out all of the 20 billion US dollars, but I also need other things. End of this chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 375. Li Yuan's request was no different from what Anna Shen had put forward before. It's nothing more than wanting equipment, technology, and market. For example, Venus Motor was allowed to enter the beautiful country, and received preferential plans and so on. As a result, Beers didn't agree to any of them. The excuse is that they can't intervene in other matters. At most, they can help and talk, but there is no guarantee that they will be able to do it. Finally, Li Yuan directly expressed his inner thoughts. Mr. Beers, I still have 500,000 tons of lithium carbonate in hand, which is the previous inventory. If you can get it for us $70,000 per ton, then I can start taking it right away. If not, I will also take it. $5 billion for telling me about the interest rate hike. Although Beers's talk about the time for raising interest rates is nonsense, Li Yuan is also talking nonsense. If Bills dared to refuse, he wouldn't take a dime. The worst case scenario is that we just have to endure it slowly with Wall Street. For Beers, this condition is very difficult, because the beautiful country cannot digest so much lithium carbonate itself, and their industrial scale is not enough. Currently, 6 of the top 10 companies in the world in the lithium battery industry are in China. As for production, not to mention, China accounts for 70% of global production. 500,000 tons of lithium carbonate is basically the raw material needs of 4 other non-Chinese companies for 8 months. Who did he buy it and sell it to? The only thing that makes me excited is the price. The current price of lithium carbonate is $73,000 per ton, and there is a certain profit margin when purchasing it. The tariff on this product is very small, it is just a shipping fee. However, once 500,000 tons enter the market, the price will definitely drop a lot. The reason why Li Yuan has so much inventory is probably because he doesn't want to drop the price. Mr. Li, is 500,000 tons too much? He knew that Li Yuan had a chemical factory under his name, and he also knew that Li Yuan imported a lot of raw ore for refining. I just never thought that Li Yuan would hoard so many. Everyone makes mistakes. In order to defeat Oriental Lithium Energy, I took over all their suppliers. However, even if I bought a stake in cattle, I couldn't sell much. Mr. Beers, I need $1 now. We can trade in the form of futures contracts, and I will pay for the storage costs. You can come and pick up the goods at any time with the contract. Whether it is sold to Chinese manufacturers or foreign manufacturers, I can cooperate unconditionally. Li Yuan was betting that Bills would have no place to stock. After all, lithium battery manufacturers are all near China, so he can't go to the West Coast with all the trouble. Interest rates are going to be raised tomorrow, and Beers has no choice. If you cannot sell tens of billions of dollars in Bitcoin today, you will have to watch losses starting tomorrow. The price of lithium carbonate is still rising. This thing is really hard currency, and the world is expanding production capacity. Mr. Li, the price of us $70,000 is too high. Global production capacity has almost been expanded. The price of lithium carbonate will definitely fall back. This is the most basic market law. Li Yuan replied, the expanded production capacity still cannot meet the demand for electric vehicles. In my opinion, it will take at least a year before the market situation stabilizes. I can give up some profits, which is $69,000 a month. How about tons? You know, I am also responsible for warehousing, and the warehousing costs are not low. If it's us $60,000 per ton, I'd be happy to help Mr. Li. There is 20% space, which is more maneuverable for Bills. It is normal for Li Yuan to want US dollars. Once interest rates start to rise, the exchange rates of other currencies will be pushed up a lot. Moreover, the essence of raising interest rates is to harvest other currencies. Only Franklin is eternal. That way I will lose money. Otherwise, Mr. Beers bought a $20 billion lithium carbonate contract from me at a price of $69,000. Similarly, I bought it from you at a price of $30,000. How about buying $20 billion in Bitcoin? What is Mr. Li's capital? Bills would not agree, because then Li Yuan would make money, but they would not. It's a lot of money, $60,000. Bills. Mr. Beers, lithium carbonate is a hot commodity right now. Even if I sell it now, I won't be able to sell it for less than $60,000 in a short time. So I need a certain profit before selling it. Also, there are no storage fees. It's equivalent to $1,000 per ton, and the freight is also $1,000 per ton. Beers. What bullshit warehousing and freight? Can it reach $1,000 per ton? That kind of cargo ship with a capacity of more than 100,000 tons can earn more than $100 million per trip? Fart. It's not like he doesn't know the international logistics situation. Only for some special items, the freight will be increased because the insurance company has higher fees and the freight company has greater risks. Minerals are really low-end goods. If it is shipped relatively close, the shipping fee of $100 per ton is sky high. Even if it's shipped to the West Coast, the shipping fee is $400 per ton. Storage fee? $50 a ton max, not even needed. $61,000, I can eat all the lithium carbonate in Mr. Lee's hand. Eat them all? My company is expected to have some production capacity this year, probably more than 50,000 tons. Mr. Lee, can you guarantee that your company will not be sold privately? Of course I guarantee that I will cede all the market to Mr. Beers. The company I work for will never sell another gram of lithium carbonate. This can be written in the contract, and the liquidated damages can be set by Mr. Beers. Beers quickly went to talk to someone about the matter. The price of $61,000 is really good value for money, although the product is a bit overpriced. But it also means that they have the initiative in shipping. New energy vehicles are the same direction for China and the United States, and this will never change. In order to support the new energy vehicle industry in the beautiful country, various industrial chains have given great discounts, including buying a car. A new energy vehicle worth $50,000 can receive a subsidy of $15,000. It is limited to domestic brands, and no subsidies are given to foreign brands. The purpose is to improve the market competitiveness of domestic brands. Being able to obtain a large amount of lithium carbonate at this price will allow the United States to reduce the cost of its own new energy vehicles a lot. After all, China uses high-priced lithium carbonate. The cost of new energy vehicles mainly lies in the battery. In just half an hour, the two sides reached an agreement. Another hour passed and the two parties signed the contract. The contract stipulates that any company under Li Yuan's name is not allowed to participate in the sale of lithium carbonate within 1 year. In the event of breach of contract, liquidated damages of $50 billion will be incurred. At the same time, the other party promised to take over the production capacity of the chemical plant under Li Yuan's name in the next year. A preliminary agreement was drawn up to deliver 500,000 tons of lithium carbonate, with Wall Street paying a deposit of $20 billion in advance. At the same time, Li Yuan also added his own conditions. If Wall Street's subsequent final payment cannot be received according to the contract time, Li Yuan can also claim liquidated damages of $50 billion. If he fails to pay, Li Yuan can unilaterally control all the goods in the contract. Goods must be stored in China. The final payment will be settled in 2 installments. The remainder of the 500,000 tons will be settled after half a year, and the additional production capacity will be settled after 1 year. The new production capacity is more than 50,000 tons. Happy to work with Mr. Lee. On the Bitcoin side, it's time to move on as soon as possible. Of course, within 5 hours at most, we can close the deal. Li Yuan hung up the phone and informed Shen Anna with a smile to cash in part of the Bitcoin short contract. And he himself was calculating how much lithium carbonate he had in his hands. 500,000 tons. Definitely not. Let alone 500,000 tons, not even 100,000 tons. The current scale of the chemical plant only refines about 100,000 tons a year. Although Gu Dongsheng has grabbed some more recently, it can only handle 100,000 tons of goods a year. In essence, his annual production capacity is only 200,000 tons. With the current market conditions, he has no worries about selling. The demand for Kixing motors is not low. It's just that the demand for Kixing motors is not shown in the books. An additional account has been made with Ningco Limited. No one knows how many goods it has sold. Anyway, 100,000 tons is enough for Wall Street to deal with. After fighting Wall Street for so long, this is the first time that Li Yuan has taken the absolute initiative. Although the project is not big, it feels very good to be a god. Damn it, if you dare to do something dirty, I can even pull out your network cable. There is not much time left for Wall Street. It is only a month. How much they can sell depends on their ability. Global production capacity will explode soon. There is nothing to speculate about in A shares recently, and lithium extraction from salt lakes is being carried out every day. When China decides to expand production capacity in a certain industry, unimaginable power can burst out in a short period of time. Lithium carbonate will soon be at a cabbage price. Anyway, Li Yuan got it in exchange for cabbage, so he didn't lose anything. Anna Shen worked overtime, and finally at 1 o'clock in the morning, she repaid the contract of nearly $40 billion, paying a cost of $20 billion, which was equivalent to making $20 billion. This method of making money is very simple. But the money earned is inexplicable. Although she had been busy for more than half a year, she never thought that the money would arrive all at once. Li Yuan didn't interfere at all, and he didn't even come to the study once. Obviously, the profits of these $20 billion are not as important to him as playing games with Xu Yanlin. The more you participate in Li Yuan's transactions, the more you can feel Li Yuan's transaction efficiency. He doesn't choose randomly. He studies for a long time before placing a bet. But as long as he makes up his mind to do it, it means that he has already calculated how much money he will earn in the future. I had confidence in my heart, so I wasn't worried at all. Otherwise, why did he stay up late every day before? She did this transaction without thinking at all, and she was busy for 5 or 6 hours without stopping. It is hard to imagine how much Li Yuan thought about it before operating it. She is very willing to accept the identity of a tool person. The feeling is something she has never imagined, and her knowledge is refreshed every day. She never felt tired. How can anyone not feel tired of being a tool? She left the study, preparing to get some food and take a look at the child. Before I knew it, my daughter was already 2 years old. The only troublesome thing is that Li Siking has become accustomed to calling Li Yuan daddy. She was afraid of spilling the beans outside. But Li Siking was still too young to understand what adults were doing, so even if she told him, it would have no effect. When she came out, she happened to hear some movement in the bedroom. She opened the door and saw Li Yuan standing at the door of the bathroom. It was obvious that my daughter was going to the toilet. As long as he is not busy as a father, he is really competent. Busy working? Li Yuan asked. Well, I took out the deposit of $40 billion and earned another $20 billion. I am still short of $10 billion before I can recover my capital. All the remaining chips must be lost before Li Yuan could lose money. If you want not to lose money, just keep the price of Bitcoin below $110,000. Bitcoin is only priced at us $30,000 now, why should it cost us $110,000? Making money is a sure thing, it just depends on how much you make. I'll sell the rest in 2 months, at a price of $18,000, anytime. Okay, do you want to eat something? I'm going to do it now. Okay, just in time I put Suqing to sleep. Early in the morning on March 16, the whole world knew the news. The beautiful country suddenly raised interest rates by 25 basis points. We have been talking about raising interest rates only in June and July. What is the result? So far in advance. The reason for the advance is simply that internal inflation cannot be contained. This news is bad news for major economies around the world. If interest rates are raised according to the normal process in June and July, then even if the interest rates are raised for 1 or 2 years, it will only be about 200 basis points. At this time, in advance, the things behind it represent far more than 200 basis points. There is no movement in A shares because A shares have long been flat. Now there is only a little money left to speculate on leftovers, and the only acceptable subject matter is related to lithium batteries. The automobile sector has been muted, even though the automobile market this year is better than any previous year. The god of wealth knows earlier than most people. He knew very well that this incident would trigger a series of chain reactions and wildly impact the domestic financial system. He couldn't wait to meet Li Yuan now, but Li Yuan's agreed time was at the end of the month. The most important thing is that he contacted those big institutions, but those capitals didn't give a clear answer at all. They are in a very bad situation now, but they also know that the god of wealth will not ignore them because of their weight in the entire financial system. The god of wealth had previously said that he would treat Li Yuan to a meal in the capital. Then everyone would come over and he would make peace with them. Everyone has no objection. But now, do you want to go to Li Yuan? Wouldn't it look like a coward if you go? Do you admit defeat on your own behalf? Therefore, few people gave a clear answer, and they all put pressure on the god of wealth, asking him to turn around and put pressure on Li Yuan. The god of wealth sighed. I'm about to retire, and I'm still under so much pressure. He seriously suspected that Li Yuan deliberately set the time at the end of March just to let everyone see the impact of the US dollar interest rate hike on the entire financial system. And he found that it was a good thing that A shares were flat. Otherwise, I'm afraid today will be another day of problems. This prevents the retail investors inside from acting as takeovers for foreign investors again. I'm going to retire, so I don't care about you. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He immediately called the secretary and said, "Go, inform those guys, every one of them, hold back their emotions for me. If you don't go to Qinghe County at the end of March, Li Yuan won't teach them, I will teach them myself." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 376. Beers and the others finally preserved their principal before raising interest rates. Although it is equivalent to working for nothing for several years, at least it is not a loss. They suspected that Li Yuan must have made arbitrage in the US stock market again. They didn't make much money in the US stock market this time. This is the disadvantage of the US dollar as a global currency. It is impossible to trace all US dollars, and there are so many channels. There is nothing in the world that can only be taken advantage of without taking risks. Since the US dollar can harvest the world, it must bear such a price. In normal times, the US dollar doesn't care about this risk at all. It's just that Wall Street met Li Yuan and was targeted. As for the agreement signed with Li Yuan, they didn't think there was any problem. Even if Li Yuan takes the initiative, does Li Yuan dare to trick them? They were eager for Li Yuan to cheat them. $20 billion would bring down Li Yuan's personal credit, and they were willing to pay this amount. Last year, Li Yuan was attacked and even the US stock market was affected. This shows Li Yuan's international influence. Even if that guy has never been abroad at all. The whole world worships the strong, and this will never change no matter what. There cannot be another stock god in this world. After the US dollar started its interest rate hike cycle, the first rate hike was only 25 basis points, which for many people was innocuous. But for big capital, the impact is huge. Starting the interest rate hike cycle early indicates that the situation is serious. Only raising interest rates by 25 basis points shows that they dare not raise too much at once. If there were a one-time increase of 50 basis points or 75 basis points, the entire market would be doomed. This is basically the last chance to fight. Big capital around the world is carrying out fund redemption operations. Those who come later will definitely become stepping stones. Getting the money first is better than anything else. Until March 26. Li Yuan specially set aside a villa and built a conference room. Since 10 o'clock in the morning, people have been arriving one after another. Yu and Shen Anna were responsible for reception at the door, while Li Yuan was responsible for reception inside the villa. When you get to his territory, the host still needs to behave well, unlike before where he could tear his face wantonly. The first one to come was Wen Yuxian. The god of wealth invited her this time, probably because he wanted Li Yuan to restrain himself. It was the first time Wen Yuxian came to this village. The whole village was not very luxurious. It was ordinary. It definitely did not match the status of Li Yuan, the world's richest man. But the atmosphere here is very good. She came in by car and didn't go to the garage. She just passed by on the main road in the village. Every household was very harmonious and the atmosphere of life was rich. When she came here, she saw Li Yuan arranging teacups and asked someone to help him hold the rope to ensure that every teacup was in line. A rich man does this kind of work. She walked over to help, but Li Yuan said, "No, there is no way to ask guests to take action. You sit down first, and I will make tea for you later." Wen Yuxian stopped what he was doing and asked doubtfully, "Are you going to apologize to them?" "In comparison, I am more looking forward to you continuing to quarrel with them today." Li Yuan turned around and asked, "Why?" "Because that's cool. Real men shouldn't apologize." Li Yuan: "Is this what you, Wen Yuxian, should say?" Wen Yuxian was telling the truth, because in the past year, many people had contacted her, asking about her relationship problems. When did those parents do such a thing? Will they keep asking if Li Yuan doesn't leave the mountain? When you really can't hold it in any longer, will you force her to do something? Then, she stood in a position of righteousness, for the sake of the overall situation and the country, and expressed her willingness to compromise and sacrifice herself in exchange for Li Yuan coming out. Li Yuan is coward now, and the next thing will not be easy to handle. No one is forcing her. She can't take the initiative and say, "Senior, I want to have a child with you," right? That scene was so embarrassing. Too embarrassed to say it. Actually, I have heard a lot of rumors during this period. Many people have said that without you, how will everyone live? Without you, everyone will make more money. Who wants to cooperate with you? If I cooperate with you, I can only drink soup. I don't know how delicious it is to eat meat now. Yet, Li Yuan didn't even know that those big capitals could still eat meat. If he could eat meat, even drink soup, he would have been forgotten in a corner long ago. Yes, after all, there is only so much money in the market. If you eat more, others will definitely eat less. My understanding should be correct, right? Haha, that's right. Fortunately, my schoolmate reminded me, otherwise I would have been deceived by those guys. But it's all set up, so there's no need to mess with it. If they dare to cause trouble for me later, I promise not to give them a good look. The senior is right. They don't understand the senior at all. They are just a group of refined egoists who only seek their own interests. They will not be the senior's helper at all, but will only hinder the senior. Li Yuan. Wen Yuxian, smiley face. She wouldn't pull Li Yuan's hind legs, at most she would pull his pants. Li Yuan felt that the god of wealth had shot himself in the foot. Inviting Wen Yuxian over was essentially to lighten the atmosphere today, but Wen Yuxian turned up the heat when he came up. Will those people be convinced? Definitely not convinced. The boss should get used to it. Even if he is in a weak position, he still has his own dignity, confidence, and face. Li Yuan put down his posture to talk to them, just because he didn't want to make the atmosphere too embarrassing, and he also had the confidence to raise conditions. After all, I have humbled myself to receive you. I am the richest man in the world. If you don't give me face, it's your fault. But he was a little unclear as to why Wen Yuxian suddenly disrupted the situation. Could it be an undercover agent planted by Wall Street? No matter how he looked at it, he still believed in Wen Yuxian. If it's not the reason, what else could it be? Soon, the god of wealth arrived in person, followed by a group of people. Everyone was waiting to be together, otherwise they would come alone and see Li Yuan and not know what to talk about. The scene is completely different from the scene 2 years ago. Li Yuan seems to have had little movement this year, but every move he makes still affects the entire market. Because Li Yuan had no end, many external funds were unwilling to come in, and market activity was very low. Li Yuan stood at the door and was greeted by car after car. They are all their own cars, which allows everyone to experience the comfort of kicking cars. Welcome everyone, thank you all for giving me this face. Xiao Li, please come in quickly, it will be dinner time soon. There is nothing to entertain in a remote place. They are all homegrown vegetables, so I just treat them as a change of taste for everyone. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 377. Before the conversation even started, Li Yuan had already set the tone for today's meeting. That is, if you are not used to it, you can leave. This meal is not delicious. It is many times worse than before. It is not certain whether it is nutritious or not. After the god of wealth came in, he directly found Wen Yuxian while Li Yuan was still receiving others. Mr. Wen, how is Mr. Li feeling today? Wen Yuxian said calmly, that's great. Don't worry, I've already talked to him after I came here. The god of wealth breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's good. If there are any problems during the process today, I hope Mr. Wen can stand up in time to ease the atmosphere. This matter is of great importance and I'm sorry to trouble Mr. Wen. Wen Yuxian smiled and said, you are too polite. This is what I should do. When Li Yuan came in, he heard this sentence. He really wanted to expose Wen Yuxian. This woman was very loud when she came up and started to stir up dissension. But business is still important. Arrange for this group of people to go to dinner first. There are about 40 people in total, divided into 6 tables. The gold content of this meal is really great. The people here combined have the ability to mobilize 30 trillion yuan in funds. Ho Wenbin and the others came to work as waiters, which is called a low profile. I have never had such a strong service attitude. It's just that most people didn't have the attitude to eat today, and the whole meal was tasteless. At Li Yuan's table, everyone was talking and laughing. After all, the god of wealth needed to test Li Yuan's attitude. I didn't test it out while eating, and everything felt fine. After finishing the meal, everyone took a rest and drank 2 cups of tea before Li Yuan formally went up to speak. The god of wealth didn't even speak today, he just came to see Li Yuan. It's an honor to meet with so many big guys today. In the financial industry, I'm a latecomer and I can't compare with any of the big guys here. After saying this, Li Yuan paused. Everyone was confused. You, Li Yuan, want to be humble, and we accept it? Now that you pause, do you want us to praise you? Soon, Li Yuan continued, maybe it's because I'm lucky and I've achieved a little bit over the years. Please watch the big screen next. Li Yuan waved his hand, and the multimedia screen on the wall behind him lit up. There is a prepared PPT content, all of which are transaction data. This is a game between me and some small capital on Wall Street. In the end, I didn't make much, more than 10 billion US. It was already 5 years ago. The second time I competed with Wall Street on Nvidia, the Wall Street people were shameless, and several companies joined forces to attack me. I was really lucky and ended up making more than 20 billion US. The third time on Bitcoin, the specific profit figures are not convenient to disclose, but I can only say that the rumors are a bit too conservative. Everyone. Rumor has it that Li Yuan earned more than 30 billion US in Bitcoin. Is this data still conservative? Li Yuan continued to slide the PPT. The fourth time, also known as Boeing, I was really forced into a dead end step by step. Fortunately, I was lucky in the end, and the overall income was not much, only hundreds of billions of dollars. He didn't say how much this hundreds of billions of dollars would be. He always emphasized that he was lucky. By the way, I played my fifth game a few days ago. I also made more than 20 billion US in pocket money on Bitcoin. These are not worth mentioning, so I didn't put them on the PPT. Li Yuan smiled and looked at the people below. He wanted to be strong to the end today, and his low profile was just to give the people present a little face. The profits he made from just one big transaction were as much as others would make in a lifetime. What could these people do to fight him? He just doesn't want to hit it too hard, otherwise A shares would be finished by now, and no retail investor will be willing to enter the market. He saw that everyone had stopped talking, and even the whispers were gone, and then he continued, "These achievements of mine are not worth mentioning. Compared with my predecessors, they are far from enough. But the leader sees me as young and feels that I still have some potential, which allowed me to be the talker. I am very grateful to the leadership for trusting me, and I also promise that I will do my best to maintain the stability and healthy development of the domestic financial system." The atmosphere suddenly picked up. The god of wealth never thought that Li Yuan would dump the blame on him so quickly. But it's okay, he will retire next year anyway. It doesn't matter whether you are famous or not. After a while, Li Yuan took out 3 copper coins and said again, "Actually, I don't have any advantages, I just have good luck. The root of good luck comes from some of our traditional Chinese culture. I like to read the Book of Changes, like to play divination. Before every game, I will do divination for myself. With so many people here today, I will do a divination on the spot, just to predict the luck of the US dollar." After saying that, Li Yuan put the 3 copper coins in his palms, clasped his hands together, raised them, and slowly shook them. Everyone was confused. What the hell is this? Tell me your thoughts honestly. If you can accept it, accept it. If you can't accept it, reject it. Why the hell are you still engaging in feudal superstition? As the 3 copper coins fell, Li Yuan took a look, then took out the projector and projected the hexagram on the screen. Then the hexagram is raised again. After the hexagram is completed, the screen is cast again. Until 6 times in a row, Li Yuan wrote the lines corresponding to the hexagrams, and then the hexagram was calculated. When Yuxian understands hexagrams. She started reading the I Ching Bagua when she was a teenager. You can tell at a glance that this is a bad hexagram. This is the done hexagram in the 33rd hexagram, which means digging a well without a spring. But many people don't understand it. Li Yuan smiled and explained to everyone, many people may not understand it, but it doesn't matter. This divination shows that the dollar is about to end. Even the god of wealth felt that what Li Yuan said was too absurd. Fortune telling can actually calculate these things. So what's the point of having politicians? Invite the fortune teller. The US dollar has been strong for too long. It is precisely because they were too strong and exercised domineering power, and now they have begun to suffer backlash. Just like the magic practitioners in the novel, when they exercised domineering power, they sacrificed countless people. Powerful ability, allowing them to ignore the hidden diseases that have always existed, and demanding excessively, making them lose the qualification to land normally. Either they will destroy the whole world, or they will become global public enemies and be divided up. Obviously, the hexagram shows the latter. This rate hike in the beautiful country is just the beginning. Every time it raises interest rates, it gives itself strong medicine to suppress its own hidden diseases. But the next time it happens again, it will be several times more difficult to suppress it. There must be capitalists here, so I won't name them. I just want to ask, do you believe in the US dollar or me? Those who believe in the US dollar can leave. I won't charge you for lunch money. When Yuxian's eyes shone, this was Li Yuan. Scold harshly. It's these capitalist dogs. It's best to start a fight, and then Li Yuan will never leave the mountain for the rest of his life. But what surprised her was that even though there were people present with sulky expressions, they never responded even half a word. You've been called a capitalist dog and you don't care at all? Are you still human? Still a little bloody? Can't you just be a bloody capitalist dog? The god of wealth felt that things were moving in the same direction as last time. But he wasn't going to intervene. In any case, he would wait until Li Yuan finished speaking. The current situation is very bad, and it is even said that it cannot be worse than it is now. At this time, someone stood up and said, Li Yuan, you said that we are capitalists, and we agree. Who in the world does not do it to make money? We who play finance are born to serve to make money. As long as the rules allow, as long as if others are willing, there is a reason for whatever we do. Li Yuan nodded, yes, you can make money, don't be arrogant. But ask yourself, have you made money? If you have made money, with your background, you don't need to be beaten by my Qingtian capital can't find Bei. If you make money, will you still come to me? Maybe you have made a lot of money over the years since you have been established. Whose pocket did the money end up in? Are you sure that each of you is a public fundraiser? Have you really fulfilled your public fundraising responsibilities? In fact, the money lost in these public offerings is more than the money earned. When you make money, most of it is not the profit of the Christians, but when you lose money, it is the profits of the Christians. Many people have grabbed a lot of wealth from A shares, but many retail investors have been pouring money into them. After all, the rules of A shares are customized by those large institutions. They say they want to speculate on concepts, themes, and value investments, and retail investors follow suit. Retail investors know what concepts, themes, and what value investing is. Isn't it the big investors like them who have the final say in so-called value investment? They feel that Mutai has the concept of value investment, which can keep the price of Mutai rising, arrange countless people to collect wine, and arrange countless platforms to create high-end concepts. There is oneness here. Just like Wall Street wants to support a certain stock, it can directly attract business to that company, or even directly stuff money into it to make the financial report stunning. There is no loss in doing this. They can make trillions of profits from Mutai stocks. How much money does it cost to arrange the system? 200 billion is too much. And that system doesn't necessarily lose money, it's just that the realization is slower. The world is bustling, and there is a deep meaning behind any industry. As soon as they operate, a value investment industry chain will emerge. In essence, it is no different from those selling cabbage on the street. That's what they say value investing is. If you want to make money in A shares, you must keep an eye on the capital market and then look for opportunities. Money earned by luck will be lost sooner or later by luck. The so-called value investment, I believe in their evil deeds. After Li Yuan finished speaking, no one spoke again. It shows that these people are ready to be humiliated. Just like what the person just said, they just want to make money, nothing else has anything to do with them, they don't have such a big picture. As the US dollar is a global currency, there is nothing inherently wrong with them following the US dollar. It's just that everyone has been impressed by Li Yuan's achievements. They never thought that Li Yuan had earned so much money. Li Yuan was silent for a while before speaking again. If you follow others, you will always have leftovers, the least soup, and the most severe beatings. Qingtian Capital was originally prepared for foreign investors. I know foreign investors like it. What? The result? You rushed in one by one. Some even threw out the cheap chips in their hands and then took over at a high position. Originally, Li Yuan wanted to add, "Are you cheap?" But I finally endured it. There must be a lot of exchange of interests behind those things, such as in-depth cooperation with some foreign capital. But these guys often trade a piece of meat for a piece of bone. In the original industrial era, it was China's large industrial system that supported the beautiful country. Cheap industrial products were the source of their high welfare. Now that the inflation in the beautiful country is accelerating, as long as they make less money, opportunities will slowly come. There is no need to do anything, just promote the internal circulation of your home, and the outside will gradually collapse. But what's the result? A lot of pushback. For this reason, I have finished complaining. I also know that you can come here not because of my face. You want to eat me alive. If you want to make money, you can. Qingtian Capital will take the lead next. Dozens of new companies have gone public. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. If you make trouble again, I will also bury you. As for other things, don't even think about it. If you want to guard your mutai, then guard it. Don't say I won't take you to play this time. Someone asked, "Mr. Li, what do you mean by this? Let all of us participate in the new stocks you operate. Otherwise, are you asking me to lead the country's Christians and stock investors to carry the sedan chair for foreign investors? To allow foreign investors to harvest a wave of their own money during the interest rate hike period? Li Yuan has no interest in supporting the ruins of A shares, at least now he will definitely not enter the market. If others believe in him, he cannot do that kind of thing. It is equivalent to finding a new place in the A share market and starting from scratch. As for the previous one, if there is a chance, just close it. If there is no chance, forget it. He wants to recreate an index in A shares called Qingtian Index. If you don't believe me, you can leave at any time. I'm not afraid of you going out and leaking the content of today's conversation, because I won't give any outsiders a chance at the beginning. The god of wealth was both pleased and a little disappointed. Fortunately, Li Yuan's position is that there is no need to worry, and it can be seen from what he does. He has a grudge against foreign capital. Sometimes I feel like he is an angry young man, but when dealing with such a person, there is really no pressure. The disappointment is that Li Yuan did not give the results he wanted this time. He only supported new stocks and did not have much promotion effect on the entire market. He never thought that asking Li Yuan to pull him up all at once would at least give all the funds a chance. Even if foreign investors make a little profit in the process, it doesn't matter. If foreign capital cannot make money, how can more foreign capital enter A shares in the future? It's the same as opening the market first when doing business at a loss. But Li Yuan's idea is to let his own people be full first and not let outsiders share the meat. After his own family has almost enough food, he will give outsiders a chance. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 378. After a while, Li Yuan said again, "Of course, it's not just the new company I chose. Everyone can support new listed companies, but there are some prerequisites, that is, they can benchmark against the standards of Qingtian Capital, otherwise there is no chance of being included in the list." Someone immediately asked, "Mr. Li, What are the standards of Qingtian capital? Li Yuan immediately said, the first standard is technology-based. The second standard is labor-intensive. The third standard is competitiveness. These three standards must be based on receiving guidance, with a simple equity structure, and can above the conditions of holding shares. The god of wealth heard what Li Yuan said and fell into thinking. He knew many of Li Yuan's operations. Bixen was constantly expanding, with more and more employees, and even a dedicated cultural and creative department. To put it bluntly, it means signing a contract with the creator and creating as a formal employee. This can be regarded as a pioneer in freelancing, which is especially attractive to some middle-level freelancers. The lower class themselves don't have that talent, and the upper class makes a lot of money and doesn't care about that. At the same time, Qingtian Group has invested in a large number of intensive enterprises, not to mention that the number of employees paying social security in Nanshan Group has exceeded 50,000, just over a year. According to Nanshan Group's project, the completion of a large-scale community can create employment for at least 250,000 people. This project is what he values most. Because all domestic real estate projects are struggling to support themselves and most groups have exhausted their cash flow, any minor problems may trigger a chain disaster. He was really pleased that Li Yuan was willing to do this. Qinghe County also provides good treatment, with more than 100,000 acres of land basically free of charge. It's not that he condoned Li Yuan, but that others really couldn't do this. He is just a spectator today. No matter what Li Yuan says, he just listens. Regardless of whether it is reasonable or not. At present, Li Yuan's thoughts are quite extreme, and his previous thoughts have not changed. Finally, Li Yuan said, I can promise here that Qingtian Capital can hold 5% of the shares of any company that meets the requirements. This is a lot of money. If he puts all the money into the companies supported by others, then hundreds of companies may be listed on the A-share market a year. Even if a family has 2 or 3 billion, it will still have to invest hundreds of billions in total. No one can refuse Li Yuan to invest money in the market. While the other big investors were discussing, the god of wealth and Li Yuan were sitting in a small living room chatting. Li Yuan, to what extent do you think the US dollar interest rate will be raised this time? Li Yuan said, there's no way to say it. The 300 points are theirs, and the 500 points are also theirs. The god of wealth frowned, can I add 500 points? I don't know, but their inflation won't come down that easily. The world will soon face a dollar shortage. And by holding US dollars, you can buy a lot of assets. It's a pity that China doesn't have much US dollars here. It seems to have 1 or 2 trillion US dollars in foreign exchange reserves. In fact, the money needs to be used in many places, and it can't spare a few dollars to take advantage of the opportunity to make acquisitions. It's not even enough to protect your own high-quality assets. When the world's high-quality assets are priced at cabbage prices, no other country except the United States will be able to provide US dollars. But Li Yuan did. He only needs to consider his own interests and does not need to worry about other things. In order to cope with the dollar shortage, China will vigorously expand exports. Export competition will become fierce, and many companies will be forced to close down due to lack of competitiveness. The world is having a hard time anyway, and without economic growth, it can only roll back. How strong domestic demand is will determine how far it can go in the future. Li Yuan's every step is to engage in domestic demand. In the next few years, his goal is to survive. If he doesn't survive, he will have no say in the future. At around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the matter was finally discussed. The preliminary intention has been reached, and now it is time for all parties to work hard to expand the new market. Otherwise, if this round of interest rate hikes continues, not many people will be able to come out alive. The main reason is that 1 or 2 trillion yuan was buried by Qingtian Capital, which resulted in no other benefits, and the biggest thunder was stepped on. Inside and outside, equals double loss. After sending everyone away, Wen Yuxian came over and said with some resentment, "Senior, you have changed." Haha, what changed? Li Yuan still doesn't quite understand what Wen Yuxian wants to do, but he must be a little disappointed today. You didn't bother to communicate with those people before, but today you actually gave them such great benefits. It's not necessarily a benefit, it might be a new trap. No, in this direction, we will definitely succeed. Why? Li Yuan himself was not confident, but Wen Yuxian looked confident. Wen Yuxian smiled and said, "It's simple. As shown by the escape hexagram you made before, it's time for all old things to be abandoned." Li Yuan said sheepishly, "Actually, I manipulated that hexagram." Wen Yuxian. "Want to have dinner at my house tonight?" Wen Yuxian hesitated. "Is your wife jealous? After all, I am still so young and she is already old. If you say a few words less, it will be fine, but if you say too much, it won't be a problem." "Oh, then go." Wen Yuxian followed Li Yuan and walked for a while before arriving at his house. But she didn't see Zhang Yuling at all. "I only saw Zhou Wan with two children, one older and one younger." At first, Wen Yuxian thought Zhang Yuling had gone out for something, but until dinner, she was so disturbed by Zhang Shu that she still didn't see Zhang Yuling come back. She asked Li Yuan sitting next to her in a low voice, "Where is your wife?" "She is out. She may not come back until the end of next month. Zhang Yuling has only been out for a few days and is mainly responsible for Qingtian Group's public welfare projects." "Then why didn't you tell me earlier?" "What can you do if you tell me? I'll bring 2 sets of clothes to help you take care of the children. Anyway, the company has no work at all recently. Can Wen Yuxian take care of children?" Li Yuan didn't believe it at all. It only took Zhang Shu half an hour to wear out her patience. When Li Yuan took over Zhang Shu whispered in his ear, "This ant is a bit stupid." Zhang Shu's criterion for measuring whether a person is stupid or not is very simple, that is whether the other person can answer his questions. If you can't answer, you are stupid. He thinks his mother is stupid, his grandma is stupid, and his grandpa is a little better, but still stupid. Only dad is the smartest person in the world. Li Yuan didn't dare to stay overnight with Wen Yuxian because Zhang Yuling had to do a video round at night. What he wanted to do now was to show respect to Zhang Yuling during the day and at night. If you are alone outside and find that your husband is not at home during the video, even if you have done a good job of psychological preparation, problems will still arise over time. As long as Li Yuan stays at night, he can tell Zhang Yuling that he still cares about Zhang Yuling's feelings. In this world, what I fear most is that I don't even want to pretend anymore. At around 8 o'clock, he arranged for a driver to take Wen Yuxian back to Zhangzhou. She was 18 when we met and is now 23. She didn't seem to have changed much, except that she looked more mature and sexy than before. In Li Yuan's eyes, Anna Shen's status as the most beautiful person has been affected. No one wanted to expose this meeting because everyone had vested interests, at least on the surface. If someone can't make money in the future, it's normal to get angry and smash the pot. Li Yuan returned to his previous state, going to work during the day, and after school, the driver would pick up a few children and play with them. He also has a day off on Saturdays and Sundays, either taking his children to do some activities in the village, or going to the mountains behind the village to take his children to see nature. The mountain behind is not big, covering an area of only 100 or 200 acres. It is planted with many pine trees, and pine trees are a paradise for birds. The dense pine needles can give birds a sense of security. He would find some bird nests, set up a camera next to them, and watch secretly with his children. Each bird's nest will be marked, and each person will adopt 2 nests. This state lasted until Zhang Yuling came back at the end of April. At the same time, what Chen Si had been putting off for a long time finally came out. After all, she needed to go to the hospital for a checkup, and she couldn't continue filming the video. Li Yuan knew that this time was not appropriate. The production should be in December, which would collide with the most chaotic time. Zhang Yuling stayed home for a week and then went out again. Li Wanhe took advantage of his children to go to school and came to Li Yuan's study. Regardless of whether Li Yuan was busy or not, he asked directly, "Isn't it bad for you to do this?" "Dad, what did you say? You are already being ridiculous. Now that the child is so old, can't you restrain yourself a little?" "Li Yuan, then, shall I add some more money?" Li Wanhe hurriedly interrupted, "What is money without money? I really care about your money. We didn't spend a penny of the money you gave us. We just ate some good food with you and lived in a big house. I mean, what do you think of Yuling like this? How will you face your children when they grow up? Maybe you don't even know your children's condition, right? I know, Zhang Shu and Li Jingcheng are by my side, Zhou Mo and Zhou Fanshu are also by my side, and I often go to Li Siking's place. I rarely go to Songju and Chen Dai's place, but I still ask them every now and then." Condition. At first, Li Wanhe sounded normal. But later, he realized something was wrong. "Who is Chen Dai?" "Li Yuan." "Forgot, my father still doesn't know about Chen Dai's existence." No, I made a mistake." But would Li Wanhe believe it? Can such a thing be said wrong? He was anxious. "Whose is it? The surname is Chen? Is it that Chen Ji?" "Li Yuan, you can really attack anyone. Isn't she your life assistant?" "Yes, I accidentally, but it's okay. You don't have to pay attention to it. I can handle it myself." Li Yuan wanted to call Chen Ji to come to his side, but unfortunately Chen Ji was unwilling. After doing the math, the two hadn't seen each other for nearly a year. Even the last time we met, it was only for a short 10 minutes. Cao Yuan also knew how to sneak over and stay in the garage for a while, but she never thought about coming back. "You can't handle it? How many clones do you have? Can you handle it? How old is Chen Dai?" More than a year old." When Li Wanhe heard this, he sighed and walked out silently. The children are over a year old, and they have not yet met or expressed their intention to be grandparents. When Li Yuan finished his work and came downstairs, he realized that there was no one at home. He thought he was taking Li Jingcheng out to play, but he didn't see his parents until Zhang Shu came home from school. He was about to call his parents when Zhou Ranran came over and said, "Let's go to my house for dinner." "My parents are with you." "No, they just handed me Jingcheng and asked me to call you to have dinner at noon, and then left." Li Yuan. "Probably going to Zhangzhou to meet Chen Dai." "It's okay, since it's inconvenient for me to go out, let the old couple do it for me." He took Zhang Shu to make some food. After all, he was still his parents. He remembered that he was not good at cooking when he was traveling far away, so he made special arrangements. Li Yuan teased Xiao Fanshu, who was also 1 year old. But it's still inseparable from people. Unlike Li Jingcheng, he was already much easier to take care of when he was more than 2 years old, especially since Li Jingcheng still has a quiet personality, which is completely different from Zhang Shu. This is so worry-free. No matter who is in the family, they are willing to take care of Li Jingcheng but not Zhang Shu. Li Yuan plans to teach Li Jingcheng again next year, but this year's class is still a little small. After dinner, he played for a while and sent Zhou Mo and Zhang Shu to kindergarten. He returned to Zhou Ranran and chatted with her. There is nothing to talk about life or the future. It's like after being married for many years, either there is a tacit understanding, or one kiss can give you nightmares for half the night. He and Zhou Ranran are the former. After all, they don't often get together, but they can't live without each other. With one look from Li Yuan, Zhou Ranran knew that he would be sweating in half an hour. They have never said anything about whether they love each other. Whether they love each other or not, it doesn't matter at this time. You are visibly weak. Zhou Ranran continued, maybe in 2 years, you will become the kind of person who has no other purpose than to drool all over me. Haha, when that time comes, it will be whatever Sister Ran says. Zhou Ranran put her fingers on Li Yuan's chin, feeling the faint stubble. Didn't you say you were retired? Why are you still so busy? Her perception of Li Yuan is the most real. In the past 5 years, every time she saw Li Yuan, she could see the fatigue in his eyes. Even after staying in the village for a year, I thought he had put down his work, but looking closely, there was still no change. How can you say let it go? Just let it go and hold on for a few more years. How long is a few years? I will definitely retire before I'm 30. Then I won't think about anything else and can just stay at home and take care of my children. But Zhou Ranran was not relieved when he heard this. You are only 24, and you will not be 30 in another 6 years. I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on until then. How is it possible? Sister Ran can't underestimate a person's potential. You have exhausted your potential and lived a short life. Retire within 2 years. I want to stay with you for a few more years. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 379. Qian Changkai is a contracted creator of Bixin, mainly for popularizing professional knowledge. As more and more content is created, the knowledge points in his mind become less and less. What little he had learned in college was almost exhausted. However, you can't make up random things, especially for science popularization, and you are not allowed to include private information. Once you include private information, your account will be demoted. After the demotion, he will not be able to guarantee the basic views. There is no the basic number of views, and the 5 insurances and 1 fund received may be stopped at any time. He has been with Bixin for more than 2 years. He had been updating on other platforms before, and his overall life was pretty good. However, freelancing is freelancing after all. There is no stable income, and there is no social credit such as 5 insurances and 1 housing fund. He wants to borrow some money from an online loan, and the interest rate starts at 10 points. And for those around me who earn 2,000 to 3,000, the interest rate on their loans is only 3 or 4 points. That's very scary. He usually doesn't have the right to make mistakes. Once he makes a mistake, he needs to borrow money and basically has no chance to go ashore. However, since signing the contract with BusinessManagement, his social credit profile has changed and is no different from those with regular jobs. The disadvantage is that you cannot update on other platforms, and you can only sign an exclusive contract with Bixin. He is quite satisfied with this. His income in Bixin is quite stable and better than previous multi-platform updates. Unfortunately, I have encountered a huge bottleneck in my creation recently, and it is too late to read and study. Today, he accepted the internal test of Qingtian language model. He originally thought it was the encyclopedia mode, but after using it for a while, he found that it was completely different. After feeding his copywriting and relevant content with accurate data, he was able to generate some other themes according to his ideas. People often don't think so comprehensively, which is why they run out of inspiration. But after such a reminder, his inspiration came instantly. Not only that, accessing information is even more convenient than before. This large language model shocked him. Although some content cannot be found yet, basically all the standard answers that can be searched on the market are available, and the database inside must be fed with a huge amount of data. It is estimated that the contents of some rare and unique copies have been included. When he tried to draw, he was surprised to find that the style of painting was very similar to that of a comic channel that Bixen had recently put on the shelves. The most popular one recently is the Comic Channel. The comics are of high quality and all the famous domestic web IPs have been acquired, and some even have secondary copyrights. Even though similar comics have been published before, the one produced by Bixen is obviously more sophisticated, with fewer cuts and fuller content. Have those comic book authors already obtained this large language model in advance? He immediately asked in the group, have you used the Qingtian language model? Damn it, the function is really awesome. Nonsense, you just know that. Bixen has annexed several comic studios and now has thousands of contracted painters. Each of them can draw all the scenes of a 3 million word novel in an average of 10 days. Why is there no news on the market? Keep it secret. It is said that the next step is to directly generate animations and buy the portrait rights of some celebrities in the future. It may not be much different from the ones shot by real people. You can tell by looking at the painting style that it is more realistic and adds romantic and aesthetic elements to the style. Damn it, then the content of this platform, Bixen, will be so complicated in the future. It's normal to roll up. If you don't roll up, it means there are no people. BusinessManagement has been losing money until now. If there were more people, everyone's life would be considered stable. If you stick to it for 15 years, you can get your pension in the future. Li Yuan is really willing to spend money. So far, he has lost more than hundreds of billions, right? The large language model he is researching and buying the resource library are not a small expense, let alone the research behind it. How many years? They are billionaires, so how much money they spend has nothing to do with us. Let me tell you quietly, many people have taken the Qingtian language model to open small accounts outside. Didn't you find that recently on other platforms, the output of relevant content has suddenly increased? Is it high? Huh? This way you won't be held accountable by BusinessManagement. Use my parents' ID cards, who knows? Qian Shanghai was moved. Make more money and no one will refuse. But he was really worried about something happening. After 3 years of investment, the Qingtian language model is not far away from being available to the public. However, when it is truly open to the public, some of the drawing capabilities will definitely be lost. After all, the drawing function does not require external data input, and Qingtian Group has already done it. These are essentially two pieces of software, but they are embedded together during the internal testing phase. Over the past 3 years, the investment has reached nearly 80 billion. Li Yuan has tried it. The current large language model, before collecting data from the public, is already much better than Chat 3.5, and is infinitely close to 4.0. After all, before the release of Chat 3.5, there was not much data fed at all. In fact, the Qingtian language model is much more complex than Chat, and the underlying architecture of Chinese logic and English logic are different. English is a very simple language. If you use English to expand programs, it is theoretically impossible to create real artificial intelligence. Chinese is hard to return to, but it is undeniable that Chinese is really the only advanced language in the world, more like alien writing. Even if the Earth civilization evolves to a second-level civilization in the future, it will not be outdated. Just because of the many characteristics of Chinese, no matter what it does, the threshold is not low. For example, it is not as convenient as English for programming. The essence of assembly language is still mechanical language, 1 is 1, and 2 is 2. True artificial intelligence requires innovative expansion based on original data, which is a capability that assembly language does not have. It's like two children, one who has learned it knows it well, and the one who has not learned it will directly give you feedback on his mistakes and hand in a blank paper. Another person who has learned it knows how to do it, and someone who has never learned it will still solve the problem, even if he ends up giving a wrong answer. Slowly you can learn human thinking logic. In order to build the underlying structure of the Qingtian language model, Li Yuan spent nearly 50 billion just to buy data. No company in the world is willing to pay for this behavior. There is never a shortage of talents in the country, but there is a shortage of positions to retain talents. After all, there are only so many high-end jobs in the world. These two AI programs have provided at least 2,000 high-end jobs for Qingtian Group, and there will be more in the future. Li Yuan took a random photo and asked, "Where was this photo taken?" Soon, the big language model gave feedback. The answer is clearly visible through the corner of the building outside the window, through the weather that day, and through the direction of the building's shadow. These are the most basic, but when they are officially open to the public, the answers will be vague and will not be accurate to a certain community, but will only be accurate to a certain city, or at most a county. This is also the charm of Chinese. Even though thousands of years have passed, we can still know from ancient books the living conditions of the Chinese people thousands of years ago and what happened. Other languages do not have this. In each era, they create new words that are completely unrelated to them for various reasons, and they are completely unable to understand what the new words mean. It is precisely because the languages of Western countries are too simple and changeable that they are almost difficult to pass down and do not form a civilization. Civilizations that only exist in legends, there is absolutely no way to prove whether those civilizations ever existed. Language is the basis for inheriting civilization. Otherwise, some changes may occur, and all civilization will have to start from scratch. For example, we have clearly entered the Stone Age, and the civilization of the Stone Age has been carved down through hieroglyphs. Even if we encounter natural disasters or wars, as time goes by, some people will slowly work out the meanings of those characters and transfer them to the advanced ones. Civilization reappeared. And Western languages are basically onomatopoeic languages. How can this thing be passed down? The only advantage of onomatopoeic language is its simplicity. After finally entering the Stone Age, a natural disaster and a war directly set all civilization back hundreds of years. A new civilization began to sprout, and a few hundred years later it entered the Stone Age, and then there was another natural disaster. Back and forth, it's like the Stone Age. Many people will say that modern science has nothing to do with China. In fact, China had calculus in the Song dynasty, and the Ming dynasty even proposed calculus derivatives. At the same time, the Ming dynasty's firearms were the best in the world. Even the seemingly weak Daking led the world in early firearms development. It's just, too much money. There are so many that they have become a global public enemy. All the silver in the world has been sucked away by the Qing dynasty, and they have united to rebel one by one. In the end, we, the Qing dynasty, had to close the country. But now, China is just back on the road to the top. All of this actually comes from the inheritance of civilization. Because of inheritance, each generation will become stronger than the next. Even though there was a gap of more than 100 years, they still caught up in a short period of time. Li Yuan has been looking at history recently. China's science in the early years did not form a strong enough system and eventually fell silent. The main reason was the imperial power. The imperial power was centralized, lagging, and conservative. These reasons can last for 200 to 300 years. Li Wanhe and Zhou Wan stayed in Zhangzhou for 5 full days before returning. Li Yuan talked to Chen Ji on the phone, and she was a little overwhelmed by the apologies and enthusiasm expressed by the old couple. For Chen Ji, it is easy to tell who is sincere to her and who is fake. Everyone in the world is treating her as a pawn. Even next to Li Yuan, he is still half a chess piece. Only Zhou Wan and Li Wanhe didn't consider anything else. Even if they couldn't truly integrate together, they still regarded her as family. She is already on the verge of collapse. Li Yuan didn't force her. Chen Dai was still young anyway, so he would wait a year or two to see the situation. She must get it back, the villa is ready for her. After Li Wanhee came back, he didn't go to Li Yuan to make any big arguments and quietly restored his previous attitude. Just money. Even after the money from the family foundation arrives this year, it won't be enough. In the past few years, Li Wanhee's money has been used for nothing else but to buy gold. Even though gold has reached a high price of 400 this year, it still cannot stop his enthusiasm for hoarding gold. In his eyes, only gold can be passed down. There was a special room in the house with a safe lock, and only he and Zhou Wan had the key. Li Yuan didn't even know how much gold was stored in it. He bought them all from banks and brought invoices with him. There were no restrictions on private gold hoarding anyway. However, Li Yuan guessed that there was a high probability of 20 tons. Because Li Yuan found that he was looking for a place in the garage recently, preparing to build a new vault. "Dad, how about I give you a little more share of that family fund? I can get a few 100 million more every year, so why don't we stop hoarding so much gold?" He was afraid that too much gold would collapse his villa. And there's really no point in having too many. Li Wanhee said, "How much are you prepared to give?" "Another 50. Anyway, I have the final say, and the share is really large. Even if it takes 2 generations, I won't be able to use it up." "Then your mother also has to give 50 copies, right?" "Okay, I'll give you 50 copies. Can we stop hoarding gold in the future?" As a result, Li Wanhee immediately said, "No. What you give is what you give, and what I hoard is what I hoard." Li Yuan. It was all for nothing, and a large amount of money was poured into it. Li Wanhee continued, "By the way, you asked Ran Ran to give me a villa specially, and I will find someone to renovate it. The garage is not very good. It would be too obvious to build a vault. Find a villa that is more remote, and I will seal the road over the garage directly and reinforce it a few layers." "Dad, why does our family need so much gold? Maybe gold will be worthless in the future. If it's not worth the money, I'll lose it." Li Wanhee was in a pretty good mood. After all, he had gained some wool from his son. He already knew very well that his son was stingy to death. Except for Zhou Ran Ran, who gave her money, no one else gave her money at all. Just last year, He Susu gave him a share of the family fund. Compared with his worth, the money was simply not enough. Zhang Yuling had money because he inherited Zhang Yuan Qiao's wealth. But Anna Shen and Xu Yanlin are both poor. Not to mention there is Qin Si. Although I set up some kind of clothing brand, it didn't make any money. He is really afraid that one day in the future, he will not be able to save enough money, and his grandchildren will become unbalanced and eventually turn against each other. I have never seen such a partial person like Li Yuan. How can he have children with so much money? Can't we just give each child a little bit? Anyway, he is already shameless, just like those scumbags. As long as he chats with Li Yuan will know that he should give him money. But there are still people who can't resist. Okay, buy. If it becomes worthless in the future, use the gold to build roads. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 380. In October, Qingtian language model was officially put into public beta. It did not cause much response at first. All the public beta activation codes were in the hands of those who had previously participated in the closed beta. Basically, each internal beta user is given 10 activation codes, and those internal beta users will sell the activation codes. Once the activation code is used, new users who have registered for more than 7 days can also obtain the activation code. This is a trick-raising model. Although the activation code can be sold for money, it is time-sensitive. As a result, those who have the activation code will spontaneously promote it. there is an exponential level in 7 days, from 50,000 to 500,000, and from 500,000 to 5 million, which only takes half a month. Every user requires real name authentication, so there is no need for one person to have multiple accounts. At the same time, several related companies supported by Qingtian Capital have also listed on A shares. There is not much movement for the time being, and the real market trend needs to ferment. Newly listed stocks have great advantages. The chip structure is clean, and whoever is allowed to make money can make money. Those listed companies actually borrowed some other shells from Qingtian language model department. They are now working together to commit crimes, and they have countless shells of all kinds in their hands. For example, it was originally a technology company, but its market value was very low, with a scale of 2 to 3 billion. It already met the conditions for listing, but it has never been able to pass. Add a department to this company, add some Qingtian language model projects, and you can immediately take advantage of the east wind. Those tickets that cannot be controlled are naturally arranged in advance and smashed after being pulled up to prevent the profits inside from running away. As for Qingtian Capital, not afraid at all. The stocks supported by Qingtian Capital have little profit potential in the short term. In addition, Qingtian Capital still has a market value of 2 trillion yuan. Whoever gets in will be buried. Maybe within 5 or even 10 years, Qingtian Capital will not have any value. There was still some performance last year, but 10 months have passed this year and the company has not made any progress yet. When the value of the enterprises supported by Qingtian Capital reaches 2 trillion, it will be in the year of the monkey and the month of the horse. After all, Qingtian Capital is not a major shareholder, with a maximum shareholding of 5%. This part of the bargaining chip is worth 2 trillion yuan, so the total size of the supported enterprises cannot be less than 40 trillion yuan, which is basically impossible. In mid-November, Chat was released, which indirectly made the Qingtian language model popular. Because the gap between the two is too big, but the media has been promoting it. The world is full of keys to the era of artificial intelligence. Essentially, they want people all over the world to feed them data. Data is very valuable. Li Yuan spent 50 billion to do it. They only need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising fees, and the data they get can be dozens of times that of Li Yuan. Although the large language models that will appear in China in the next few years are very general, the main reason is that domestic manufacturers are not willing to invest money. The investment is basically in the scale of several billions, and the initial database is no different from a blank. They all want to use user data for free. Only Li Yuan spent nearly 100 billion on foundation. In the same way, Chat is also terrible. Even if so much of the world's data was wasted in the later period, it still can't be really put to use. If Microsoft hadn't entered the game, increased investment, and remodified the underlying architecture, that thing would not be as good as the cheap versions of several domestic manufacturers. China has learned a lot from Western marketing methods. No matter what product is released, it first spends billions in marketing expenses. Whenever a car appears, it will be hot searched on the short video platform for half a month, inviting countless creators to create related content, and praise it without any bottom line. When it comes to after-sales service, we should also follow the Western approach. Problems are always the user's fault, and the company is White Lotus. However, this is how other companies treat outsiders, and they would not dare to do so in their own country. As for those domestic companies, they specifically treat Chinese people like this: when they go abroad, they kneel down. If someone unconditionally finds you billions of dollars in revenue, you won't even dare to let go of it. When you go to China, you keep claiming to be a user, but then you turn around and take the user to court. Li Yuan saw that the entire network was marketing Chat, including Bixen, who had received marketing funds. The amount was quite large, a total of $20 million. But Song Jiajia didn't answer. It's not that Songjiajia is considering Qingtian Group, but that Bixen does not currently have an advertising business. Bixen's purpose is not to allow marketing advertisements to appear. Non-marketing ones are okay, such as brand words appearing in news, creators' rights protection content, etc. Whether the quality of the product is good or bad, once it is put on the shelves of Bixen Mall, there will naturally be dedicated people to test it. You cannot let go of the right to speak at will, otherwise the trolls inside will not be able to tell the difference. Originally, December was a wave of traffic harvesting for chat, but another incident continued to occupy the headlines. That is, everyone becomes the first person responsible for their own health. Starting on December 13th. The 3-year nightmare has come to its final moment. On this day, Bixen Mall became busy. People all over the internet are complaining about the inability to buy ibuprofen and various fever-reducing drugs. As it happened, a biopharmaceutical laboratory invested by Li Yuan first practiced on products with expired patents. These all have fixed standards and mature experience, so it is not difficult. Just like 3 years ago, Bixen Mall started the rhythm of free delivery of ibuprofen. If we only count the cost of medicines, the loss will not be much. The cost is only a few $100 million, and the raw materials are not expensive. But if you add delivery fees, it becomes expensive. Not to mention logistics, warehousing, and packaging. Even if it is delivered from the warehouse to individuals, nearly 200,000 couriers will have to deliver close to 900 orders within a week. We also need to find people to pack the packages. There are nearly 200 million packages, and the labor cost is as high as 10 billion. Of course, traffic must also be harvested. A-share pharmaceutical companies originally thought they had encountered a good opportunity, and they were all waiting for their market value to skyrocket. Unfortunately, that situation did not arise. With the nationwide distribution of Bixen, there is no shortage of medicines on the market. Those who were hoarding medicine also began to beg their grandfather and grandma to find someone to sell their goods. Some people even began to slander the ibuprofen delivered by Bixen Mall as being ineffective. But everyone is using the same formula, and it is also a standard given by the country. Twice in 3 years, Li Yuan killed many people's opportunities to make a fortune. At the same time, a miracle drug from Pfizer was launched at a high price. In order to enter the domestic market, they directly seek endorsements from domestic big shots. It has attracted countless people's pursuit. Even if the conditions at home are not good, it will cost thousands to find a way to find someone else to get a box. Faced with this situation, Li Yuan was helpless. Because he also prepared a few boxes. It was prepared for Qin Si, after all, Qin Si was about to give birth. That medicine is indeed effective, but 99.999% of people cannot use it at all. He has money, even if he throws away tens of millions, it will not affect him. But most families really don't care about the thousands of dollars. Just for an illusory thing? This is different from insurance. The probability of using insurance can reach 24%, and the utilization rate of car insurance can reach 60%. That medicine is for severe cases, and it is not useful for everyone. The subsequent recovery is not necessarily due to the effectiveness of the medicine. The usage scenarios are dozens of times smaller than cancer insurance. It can only be said that foreign marketing methods are too abundant, and the money in the hands of Chinese people is too profitable. Successfully generated 5.6 billion domestic revenue for Pfizer. Throughout the life of Chinese people, they actually make less money. But where is the money spent? Let's not talk about houses and cars. In fact, they are not really a big deal unless the real estate is worth more than 3 million and the car is worth 1 million. In fact, a family of 3 has been earning a lot of money for decades, usually less than 2 million yuan. Most of the money is harvested by market profiteers. Don't look at the tens of dollars here and the tens of dollars there, it's thousands of dollars throughout the year. Some take advantage of human weakness, some take advantage of people's panic, some take advantage of people's lack of cognition, and there are also all kinds of harvesting based on information gaps. It was originally a good thing to bring home appliances to the countryside, but what did those companies do? Products that have been phased out in big cities are brought over, and on the one hand they receive subsidies, and on the other hand they sell large energy consumers to rural people. That electricity bill. They were all designed more than 10 years ago. If you think about it, you will know how many flaws they will have and how much energy they will consume. As a result, many villagers did not dare to turn on air conditioners even though they had them. The electricity bill costs 50 or 60 to turn it on all night, and the meter runs faster than a watch. It consumes more electricity than Li Yuan's current household. How many electrical items does his home use? The electricity bill is only 70 or 80 yuan a day. Gu Dongsheng called. Came back. Li Yuan asked. Gu Dongsheng usually wouldn't call at this time. If he did, he would most likely return home. Well, I'm back. Take a look at the children and take them to live in the village tomorrow. Help me find someone to clean the room. Okay, let me tell my mother, don't forget to pay for the cleaning fee. The villa is so big, and the little sisters have to pay 2,000 yuan each. Zhou Wan organized a cleaning team in the village. After all, there are more people in the village and there are more needs in all aspects. Looking for outsiders and worrying about something going wrong are basically digested internally. Zhou Wan took the lead in finding people who she would occasionally help with when she was free, mainly to introduce work to others, and they were all reliable. The cost is also expensive. Don't worry, I promise to deliver it as soon as possible tomorrow. By the way, I've prepared a gift for you when I come back this time. Li Yuan smiled and said, I think you are hinting that I should prepare a meeting gift for your two children, right? Ha ha ha, anyway, if you look at it, I will still give it to you. You can't run away if you give it to me. Where's Lao Chen? Staying in Zhangzhou for a few more days. Okay, let's talk when we get back. Li Yuan didn't know what gift Gu Dongsheng wanted to give, and didn't ask. With the power that Gu Dongsheng has worked hard over the past few years, he can already see this guy's terrifying abilities. Anyway, Shen Tianfu never took advantage of him, and the overall situation was always under his control. Although he is helping, Gu Dongsheng is more adaptable than anyone else to the brutal predatory situation of the jungle. No matter how much money he has, he will dare to fight against others. Gu Dongsheng's skin in Zhangzhou was darker than before. The murderous aura in his whole body is also very obvious, and his eyes can scare ordinary people. After making the call, he found a contact and sent a message. Senior sister, I'm going back to Qinghe tomorrow. You can come with me then. I have already arranged the hotel, but I also have some conditions. I have some special hobbies. I will make arrangements in advance before I go there. I hope my senior can cooperate. If you are not willing to cooperate, it will stop here. The person he was chatting with was Tong Suifei. Last year, this woman got his contact information from somewhere and took the initiative to contact him. He didn't dare touch this thing. Even Li Yuan wanted to avoid it. Who knows what kind of mentality this woman had? The biggest loss Li Yuan had ever suffered in his life was from this woman. Li Yuan doesn't want to worry about this now, but he doesn't want to just let it go. He is rich, and this is not a secret among those who know about it. Tong Suifei wanted a sugar daddy, but unfortunately she shouldn't have found him. Early the next morning, he took his children and drove several cars towards Qinghe County. An hour and a half later we arrived at our villa. Originally, he only wanted children, but the two girls were better behaved, so he simply stayed. As long as you don't cause trouble for him, he definitely doesn't care about money. When the child is a little older, he will be given to Li Yuan to take care of. With the cash, he thanked the cleaning team led by Zhou Wan, and each gave a small gift, and he began to recruit people. Tong Sui checked into the Tianlan Hotel in Qinghe County, which is apparently the only 5-star hotel in the Qingtian group. It has just been renovated for half a year. Then he found Li Yuan's driver, borrowed 2 female bodyguards, and ordered them to do something. In his own name, of course. Lunch was eaten at Li Yuan's house. He didn't bring a woman, but only 2 children, a boy and a girl. The girl's name is Gu Man and the boy's name is Gu Zheng. After eating, he also asked for gifts from Li Yuan, and then called Li Yuan to go out. Tianlan Hotel, this place, Li Yuan still feels relatively safe. The entire county is quite safe, and there are his people, or Zhou Ranran's people, everywhere. When the 2 of them got on the elevator, Li Yuan asked, "Can you do a fairy dance for me?" "Gu Dongsheng, what's wrong? Are you attracted to me, a black charcoal? Then please be gentle later." You're so disgusting." Haha. When the elevator reached the 36th floor, Gu Dongsheng took out a room card and said, "It's in 3602. The gift I prepared for you is over there. I promise I haven't even gone in yet." Li Yuan took the room card and said, "Then I will accept your favor today." After saying that, Li Yuan walked over there, while Gu Dongsheng stopped at the door of the elevator, sitting on the sofa nearby and waiting patiently. Li Yuan opened the door of room 3602, entered the bedroom, and saw a woman wearing a blindfold and her hands restricted on the bedside. It was the only business he ever lost money on. About half an hour later, Gu Dongsheng arrived at Li Yuan. He walked over and asked, "How do you say it? Is it worth 1 yuan or 10,000? Li Yuan waved his hand and said, "It's worthless." Gu Dongsheng laughed and said, "Okay, I'll take care of this matter. You go downstairs first." When Li Yuan left in the elevator, Gu Dongsheng sighed. Whenever Li Yuan said one more word, he might have to deal with it carefully. The result was that Li Yuan was not willing to say one more word, which was enough to show that there was really nothing about Tong Sui that he could care about. This Tong Sui is really broken. But since Li Yuan is willing to come, it means that he still cares about the previous account. The account is now settled. He came to 3602 and glanced at Tong Sui. Li Yuan really didn't even leave her the last bit of dignity. He went to the bathroom, picked up a bath towel, threw it on her, and then took off her blindfold. Tong Sui looked at Gu Dongsheng with a flattering expression, even though Gu Dongsheng was not handsome at all now. Gu Dongsheng lit a cigarette and said, "Senior sister, how many goods do you have? Why do you have the nerve to come to me? Do I look like a rag collector?" After saying that, he took out 10,000 yuan in cash from his pocket and threw it on the bed. Tong Sui's expression froze. "What do you mean? It's no fun. There are so many, so there's no need to look for them. That time just now, I think it's worth 3,000 at most." After saying that, he threw away the cigarette butt, turned and left the room. End of chapter.